Let the record reflect, we have reconvened with all members present. For those who are able, please stand for the pledge, and I ask you to remain standing after the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. We always take a moment at the beginning of the meeting to remember those longtime residents that we've lost over the last few weeks. Just yesterday, Joseph DiBiase, lifelong Madison resident, passed away at Pine Acres at the age of 88. Up until his passing, he lived in the house that his father built on Locust Street. Many of you may not know Joe DiBiase, but as I talk about him, you'll know exactly who he is and what he meant to Madison. His full obituary was not published yet, so I will just share a little bit of my background story. His parents opened up Central Lunch on Central Avenue in the 1920s. And as a proclamation I presented a few years ago for the 90th anniversary, Joe literally was raised behind the counter and then started working behind the counter. My first round and living on Britton Street, I would walk past there and a little sign in the window said, "Don't laugh at your loss." I finally said, I've got to find out what the story is. I went into Central Lunch and became a lifetime fan. At that point, Joe obviously was running it, but his parents were actually still working behind the counter, helping him out on weekends. It was a small place. If you have the chance to go in there, probably maybe sat 12. If you were all friends, maybe 14. But Joe made it like family, giving awards to those that came too early before he was ready to really open up. I won't tell you what the name of the award was, but it was an interesting plaque on the wall. The sausage Klondike was the meal to have. I tried to replicate it, but could never match it. And breakfasts and lunches were always delicious. Maybe not healthy, but always delicious there. As you have Chief here, I first met Lieutenant James Blair behind that counter. He was probably 12 years old, helping Joe with the operations every Saturday, and then expanded. And he was at Joe's side, helping him in his last couple of years. So we will certainly miss Joe DiBiase and what he meant to our town. For those that want to show their respects, there will be a visitation from 9:30 to 10:30 to Madison Memorial. At 11 a.m. The burial will be celebrated at St. Vincent Martyr. We also remember Gloria Marie Colella, a longtime Madison resident, passed away on February 8th at the age of 95, survived by 3 sons, retired Madison Police Lieutenant Al Trianello, Anthony and David Damiano, 3 daughters, Antoinette, Francine, and Angelina, several grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She was predeceased by her beloved husband, who died at a young age, Ralph Trianello, and her second husband, Anthony Damiano, 2 sons, Ralph and Stephen, 2 brothers, Anthony and Ronald. Born in Summit, she was raised in Summit with her brothers, moved to Madison her senior year of high school. Her father, Anthony, a mason by trade, was building a new house for the family on Niles Avenue. She graduated from Madison High. Long career at Prudential in Newark, and also at Automatic Switch in Florham Park. She was active at St. Vincent Martyr Church. Also remember Vito Terranova, longtime Madison resident. He was 74. He leaves behind his wife of 17 years, Carol, her cherished daughters, Donna, Nicole, Tara, respected spouses, and 1 brother, Peter, sisters, Sally and Patricia, predeceased by 1 brother, John, and 1 sister. Born in Elizabeth. He grew up in Elizabeth, moved to Madison in the early 80s. He served the United States Army after being stationed in Germany. Met his future wife, Carol, on a blind date at Charlie Brown's. No longer there. And they were married in 2007. He had a career as a HVAC mechanic and volunteered as a Madison firefighter. And many of you may remember driving the sidewalk street sweeper in downtown Madison for a good number of years. And he was always smiling as keeping our downtown very clean. Also remember Thomas Caveza, lifelong resident of East Hanover. passed away January 25th, age 52, survived by his father Carmine, brothers Michael Caveza and Madison Police Department Sergeant James Caveza. Predeceased by his mother Diana and infant sister Christina. Born in 71, raised in East Hanover. He was a graduate at Hanover Park. He loved fishing and the serenity of being surrounded by water and nature. Tom worked at East Hanover Department of Public Works for many years. Most recently was a self-employed contractor. And Anna Stofik passed away at age 96 on January 24th. She lived in Madison for 72 years. She worked 23 years as the cafeteria manager at Crum & Foster and was also a member of St. Vincent Martyr Church. She was survived by her loving children, Joan, and her husband, Gregor, and her son, David, his wife, Janet, daughter-in-law, Patricia, her sister, Joan, 6 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren, predeceased by her husband, Edward. Let's take a moment to remember Joe DiBiase, Gloria Colella, Vito Terranova, Thomas Caveza, and Anna Stofik, and let us pass our thoughts on to the families and friends they leave behind. Thank you. I have a motion for the reorganization minutes of January 2nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Right, and a motion for the executive minutes of January 22nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Already discussed, all in favor?
Aye.
And motion for the regular minutes of January 22nd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
You had the one correction on the motion on going into executive. Any other corrections or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion for the special meeting minutes of January 29th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Welcome all. Nice crowd tonight. And for those that did come out tonight, I cannot promise that it'll be as exciting as last night's Super Bowl, but I will promise that we will strive to avoid overtime.
Wow.
And we are bracing for what may be our first major snowstorm in a few years, and we've already have announced a delayed opening for Borough operations tomorrow at 10 a.m. The schools have already announced that they'll be closed, so let's, this right now, today's felt like spring and tomorrow will feel like winter, so let's be careful as we're out there because we're all a little out of practice. A few other things going on over the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, I had the honor of performing my 250th wedding ceremony, and it's 251 if you count my son's wedding, but that was performed in Massachusetts, so that wasn't added to the list, but it's one of the great honors as a mayor to perform those ceremonies, and certainly I enjoy that part of the job. On January 26th, we had a gathering to send Borough Engineer Bob Vogel off to retirement, and the impact of his work was reinforced with all the staff and outside professionals, former bosses, and even his predecessor who showed up. So I think Madison gave him a great send-off, and we hope that he's enjoying his new life. And Bob, if you're missing it and you're home watching right now, hello. And on Friday, February 2nd, I hosted the 4th grade Tori J. Sabatini Girl Scout troop, and as always, I put them through a mock council meeting. It's always interesting, the things that are higher on the list. The initial proposed ordinance was to require dog owners to walk their dogs after 10 p.m. A motion was made for that ordinance, and it did not get a second, so for those dog owners out there, you can still walk them at any time of the day. So they did shift their attention to the trash in our downtown. And so they passed the ordinance unanimously that we should strengthen our rules against people dropping trash. And as I shared my experience of picking up many cigarette butts with my litter grabber, if you see me go to town with that, they started talking about banning smoking in downtown but we ran out of time, so they did not pass that ordinance. But very interesting there at what comes out of the groups I have here. And last Thursday, I attended a hearing on proposed legislation to address the affordable housing in New Jersey. I shared Madison's proud history with affordable housing. I also got a taste of what a hearing is like. The hearing was scheduled for 11 o'clock. It started about 11:20, and about 10 after 1, they broke for a 1-hour recess, which was 2 hours, and about 5:20, I got to share my remarks. And so I did thank the subcommittee and the legislation for their effort to work on a better system for managing the obligation. But I also shared concerns with the bill as it stood last week. Amendments have been made, and there's recognition there's still more work to be done. I have not had a chance to analyze all these amendments. But with this in mind, I have spearheaded a letter that will be sent to Senate President and Assembly Speaker asking them to slow down the process to fully engage municipalities in the process. As I said at the hearing, the involvement of partners such as the state, nonprofit housing, affordable housing advocates, and yes, developers that will support the effort for affordable housing is very important. But it is the commitment from the 564 municipalities that will actually put those in need in quality homes. So they need to have the municipalities at the table to make sure this is the right legislation. And to announce the Employee of the Month for February, Nick Santangelo from the Sewer Department. Nick, as a foreman, made sure his department was ready for a heavy rainstorm we had in mid-January, advanced preparation, which included monitoring the storm outfalls and drains throughout the day and evening, cleaning the pump station, servicing backup generators, ensured we were ready for the bad weather. So please congratulate Nick on Employee of the Month and all the extra work he's done. And now I'm going to come down below for a couple of proclamations.
Contributions, there we go, thank you. Celebrate the contributions African Americans have made to American history in their struggles for freedom and equality of our nation's history. Whereas Negro History Week was first proposed in 1926 by scholar Carter Woodson, who dedicated his life to educating African Americans about achievements and contributions of their ancestors. And whereas in 1976, President Ford expanded the commemoration of Black history in the United States to Black History Month, saying the celebration enabled people to seize the opportunity to honor the all too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas this year's theme, African Americans and the Arts, celebrates the profound impact of Black ancestry, artistry in our culture, national identity, and social movements. And whereas through literature, music, architecture, dance, film, and many other mediums, Black artists have used their art to preserve history and community memory as well as for empowerment. And whereas for centuries, contributions of people of African descent to the arts have been denied or minimized, even as artistry was mimicked. And whereas various forms of creative expression have had a pivotal role in opening new dialogues, challenging us to examine hard truths, and inspiring us to work towards something better. Now, therefore, I, Robert H. Conley, Mayor of Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, hereby proclaim February 2024 as Black History Month and ask all to celebrate our diverse heritage and work towards equality and opportunity for all.
Much of the power of our freedom movement in the United States has come from this music, has strengthened us with the city rhythms where courage began to flow, has calmed us with its rich harmonies and spiritual. And now, jazz is exported to the world. For in the particular struggle of the Negro in America, there is something akin to the universal struggle of life. Everybody has a blues, everybody longs for it, everybody needs to love. Everybody needs a podcast. Everybody wants it. In music, especially as a broad category, jazz is established the another person I want to mention is Duke Ellington, who performed with the Duke of Borough as a teenager across the street in 1972 in a very famous piece called Sacred. So, as far as Madison's connection to the history of town,
All right. The Cultus family, please come forward. Or Dave, are you staying back to take pictures? Okay. Kathy, Linda, come on up. I know we have a few friends in the audience, so I'm asking those who can, if you've been directly helped by Bob Cultus over the years, please stand up. And this, since most of you are already standing, but those who have been touched by Bob's kindness, please stand up. Or if you're already standing, just wave a hand for a second. And those who have been inspired by Bob's work, wave. That is just a part of the Bob Cultus story. It is not just in Madison where his influence was, but across the world through his work with Rotary, through fighting disease and whatever challenge Rotary would take on, Bob was ready. And just to kind of some of my personal stories, and I got to meet Bob initially when he was volunteer with the Y. One of those volunteers that was never allowed to leave. He was chair of the board for a while. He also did a lot of team leading workshops for his staff. And if you don't like my style, leave the room now, because I think a lot of my style came from some of the things at workshops I learned from Bob on how to be a leader. And he also was always very good with advice and predicting the future. I had to filter some of that advice because I remember about 30 years ago, after my first attempt to be a council member did not work out the way I thought, and Bob suggested, you know, you're going to make a good council member someday, maybe you should switch parties to be elected. Well, I didn't listen to that one. But he did say, Bob, after I was elected, you should be mayor someday, and I took that to heart, and that's the type of person Bob Cultus is. He is a leader and he sets the tone for others not only for him to do work, for others to do the work also. So I have a, and if you want, you can sit down now. So, but I have a proclamation. As many of you know, I created an award a couple years ago called the Mayor's Legacy Hero Award, and you've got one right here, and Mayor Woody Kirkeslager. And this is for those that have, through their body of work over the years, have truly made a difference in our community. And in the story of Bob Cultus, it was our community, our county, our state, our world. So I presented the award last Friday, and here's a proclamation as a follow-up. Whereas Bob Cultus, a lifelong Madison resident, graduated from Union College in Cranford and worked as a salesman, perfect job for Bob Cultus to start, right? Before starting his successful family printing business. And whereas in 1959, Bob married Kathy Ruzicka, who was a member of the prominent Madison rose growing family, and they had 2 children. David with the camera, the camera's not in the proclamation, and Linda, who they raised here in Madison. Whereas Bob served as a board member for many years with the Madison area YMCA, as I mentioned. Whereas Bob is a long-time Rotarian, truly lives the Rotary motto of service above self. And whereas feeding the poor, immunizing children, education, literacy were important goals of the Cultuses, and Bob and Kathy traveled extensively for this volunteer work and hosted dozens of exchange students from all over the world. They have exchange student children, grandchildren, and maybe even great-grandchildren at this point. And whereas in the 1980s, as chairman of the Madison area YMCA Board of Directors, Bob spearheaded the capital campaign to raise the necessary funds for the renovation of the former Lisa D. Anthony School, which became the F.M. Kirby Children's Center. The center continues to provide much-needed quality, affordable childcare for parents in our area. Whereas, you always knew Bob was present due to his distinctive laugh. No matter how crowded that room is, how many Rotarians knew Bob was there when you heard that laugh? You could light up that room. And as I mentioned that, when I presented the award, he let a great laugh out that day. And whereas, during an interview several years ago, Bob explained his view on volunteering by saying, "What we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others lives on." And whereas we often hear of power couples, but after 65 years of marriage and service, Bob and Kathy have shown us what it means to be a caring couple. Now, therefore, I, Robert H. Conley, Mayor of Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, hereby recognize the contributions of Bob Cultus with his proclamation and the Mayor's Hero Legacy Award. He is a local hero and example to all of us. The borough and the world are a better place because of Bob's efforts. And Bob couldn't be with us tonight, but we will recognize him with his proclamation.
I just want to say that nothing happens by yourself. There's a lot of people in this room who have helped my husband with all the adventures and jobs and work that he's done as a volunteer. He loves being a volunteer and came from a family of volunteers and a family of a lot of history in this community. Back to Dr. Cultus, who was the town doctor many years ago. A terrifying individual. But Bob loved this town, and he continues to monitor what's going on. And I really appreciate the award on his behalf. And again, thank you all for everyone. As I see so many faces who have helped him along the way. So thank you for that.
And Kathy and Linda, when you go home, please give them a big hug for all of Madison.
As I mentioned the invitation I sent out to Rotarians, you're all welcome to stay for all our reports and the budget presentation. But if you have to go somewhere else, we won't take it personally. But
Well, my son went to Kirby, so if I'd known that, I would have stood up because they basically raised Julian when we first moved here. So I guess I'm most touched by Bob Coltis.
all right, we'll move on to reports from committees. Public Safety, Council President Range.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Police Department tonight, on February 5th, Sergeant Bart Cloud graduated from the New Jersey State Chiefs Association sponsored class titled Command and Leadership Academy. The training is an extensive 13 weeks and is by acceptance and invitation only. The training prepares the officer to lead and understand and motivate others. Topics vary from leadership sciences to managing change. We are proud to say that each and every Madison Police Department supervisor will have gone through this training by the end of the year. On February 9th, members of the Investigative Bureau and Community Policing Unit took part in the monthly Basketball at the Y, which is sponsored by Project Community Pride. Officers took part in shooting hoops with juveniles from town, while sparking conversation and humanizing our officers, which helps continue our goal to strengthen our relationship within the borough community. We're also happy to report tonight that the New Jersey Arrive Together program that was first announced last fall will be commencing in the coming weeks. With this program, mental health professionals will be responding to predetermined call types to assist our residents going through crisis. The Madison Police Department will have mental health professionals in-house at headquarters to respond and conduct follow-ups with our residents. Our social worker will be arriving at headquarters later this week to meet with officers. And just a note on the upcoming storm tomorrow. With the storm forecast for tomorrow, street parking may be suspended tomorrow evening to aid in clearing streets, so be sure to follow Borough social media accounts for updates there. And from the Fire Department. So far this month, in February, the Fire Department has responded to 21 general alarms, 15 still alarms, conducted 36 investigations, and 70 medical calls for a total of 142 calls. On January 26th, the Fire Department responded to the area of Noe Avenue and Crestview Avenue for the odor of natural gas. Firefighters found a large leak in the roadway where gas was bubbling up from a large area. It was also found that the gas was starting to enter several homes. PSE&G was notified and 6 homes were evacuated. Firefighters remained on the scene until PSE&G was able to secure the broken pipe under the road. On February 1st, the Fire Department responded to 26 Clinton Place in Morristown for a third alarm structure fire. On February 11th, the Fire Department was alerted to oil in the waterway behind the baseball fields on Rosedale Avenue. Firefighters found what appeared to be an oil sheen on the water, starting from Main Street, going all the way past the Madison Pool. Morris County Hazmat was called to investigate, and it was determined not to be oil, but a natural forming bacteria, and was deemed not to be hazardous. Lastly tonight, another storm-related note. With the most significant snow event in Madison in a long time, the Fire Department would like to remind residents to clear the fire hydrants of snow that are on or near their property. Residents should shovel snow to clear at least a 3-foot radius from the hydrant. The simple act can save valuable time should that hydrant be needed during a fire. And lastly tonight, from our joint court, the Oversight Committee for the Joint Court of Madison, the Chathams, and Morris Township held their reorganization meeting on January 25th. Their chairperson for 2024 will be Township Committeeman Jeff Grazel from Morris Township. On our council agenda tonight, we've got 2 appointments related to the joint court. The first is Lisa Thompson to serve as the prosecutor for Chatham Borough and Madison Borough, replacing Marianne O'Donnell McCoy. In that position of her, as she's going to be a municipal court judge in Washington Township. We wish Marianne the very best and thank her for her many years of service in Madison and the joint court. In addition, tonight we have a resolution promoting Cynthia McCaffrey to violations clerk. Therefore, we'll be hiring a part-time violations clerk for the joint court. Experience in municipal court is preferred, but anyone can apply. Details regarding the position can be found on the Borough website, and all applications must be submitted by Friday, February 23rd at 4:30 p.m. That's all from Public Safety tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Borough Clerk. Ms. Ehrlich.
Thank you, Mayor. The council has already had multiple financial presentations over the last few months, and tonight we'll jump into the process in earnest. This evening we will get our first look at a draft municipal budget developed by the Borough Administration. It's important to note that this is a draft budget and will change as the numbers are refined. Voting on the budget is one of the most important actions that the council takes. We work hard as a governing body and administration to be transparent and to make information available to the residents. Tonight we will have the third of 7 scheduled budget presentations. On January 22nd, we discuss the water and electric utilities, and on February 26th, we will meet with department heads. On March 11th, we'll discuss the municipal budget again and review our Madison strategic planning guidelines. And then on March 25th, we'll have one final discussion on the budget along with the introduction of the official state budget document. As per New Jersey statute, we will take a 4-week break so that all residents have the opportunity to review the budget document. And then on April 22nd, we're scheduled to have a hearing and vote to adopt the budget. All budget information is available on the annual budget process page on rosenet.org. In other finance news, the borough has 2 major payments going out this Wednesday. First is a monthly payment to the Board of Education. This month, the payment is $3,941,111.67. And the second major payment is an interest payment of $31,165 for the MRC debt payment. This payment is paid out of the Open Space, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Trust Fund. Lastly, the Chief Financial Officer has filed the annual debt statement with the State of New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. This document summarizes the total debt for both the borough and the school board and compares it to the average of the last 3 years of our equalized assessed values. The annual debt statement, or ADS, is available on Rosenet along with many other financial documents. The ADS is yet another tool used to help ensure towns are being fiscally responsible and transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Landrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, the first few announcements here are related to the upcoming storm. Due to the pending weather conditions, garbage and recycling pickup scheduled for tomorrow, Tuesday, February 13th, will be rescheduled to Thursday, February 15th. As all municipal offices will have a delayed opening at 10 a.m. tomorrow, February 13th. And let's see, DPW is monitoring the weather forecast for the pending storm. Plows and salt spreaders are ready to go. And now this is not related to the storm. For the DPW mechanical staff is getting lawn equipment ready for spring, which is nice, which is good news at this point. Parks Department is repairing player benches for the upcoming sports season, and the road department is out patching potholes. And finally, due to the tremendous amount of rain in the last couple of weeks, and the sewer department was in overnight cleaning drains and maintaining the pump stations. With the upgrades we have been doing on the pump stations, we are handling the high flow times much better and are seeing less emergencies. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Utilities, Mr. Howard Lewis.
Thanks, Melissa. Hello, everybody. Hello, members of the community. Reporting on the water utility. Ken O'Brien isn't around. He's on leave, so Robert Duffy is next in command. Sent me a few updates. There's work continuing on Well B upgrades. The well needs to be up and running before spring. Well B is the well over by John Street. There's a lot of work being done there, reconditioning the well and all the power over there. There's going to be a new generator to back it up. So there's a lot of positive upgrades there for the borough. The water department inspected 4 new water services and did numerous water line shutoffs and turn-ons for plumbers doing work for homeowners. And there's a water valve testing that will start in portions of the borough in the next few weeks. There's going to be notifications posted on the borough social media. If there's any shutoffs that will affect residents, they'll be notified. From the electric utility, Mr. Jim Mattina, Danforth and Morris Place, there was a big accident, and the electric department worked on replacing a utility pole that was broken, and it took almost a week. So it was a major knockdown of the pole, but I don't think anybody's service was disrupted for very long. 150 Main Street, the standby was called to Verizon building for no power. The underground primary wire tripped out. The contractors are pulling new wire with the help of the electric department. On February 11th, the standby was called to a generator running at the well on John Avenue for unknown reasons and did not find a problem. The electric department continues to respond to its typical activities, including service installation, demolition disconnections, street lights repair, mark-out requests, solar tie-ins, broken branches on wires. We have all of our new historic light posts already at the electric department, and they should be starting the install soon. And then from the Recreation Activity Committee, which I had the pleasure of sitting on for the first meeting of the year. There's 6 meetings. The director is Zach Ellis, who does a fantastic job as a part-time borough employee, and Dave Carver is the president of the RAC. Just for the community's knowledge, in case you didn't know this, there's 13 youth sports that we support in the borough, and each sport is organized by a community volunteer. We're very fortunate. And in addition, and they're male and female sports. Soccer has both, baseball, softball, lacrosse, tremendous hockey. We have a lot going on. Plus, we have a junior school or up to junior school age ski trip that Zach Ellis organizes. He has 3 full buses of students that have been going to Peter Mountain, I think it's called, in upstate New York, but it's not really upstate. It's just the end of Route 287. We talked about the fact that the borough supports all of these youth programs with some stipends to help them financially, but they do a very good job fundraising, and fees for the parents, from the parents. And we also talked about the revenue, which you'll see in open space that the borough gets from renting our fields when they're available, which helps a lot with the program. And then we talked about the solar deck that's going to be installed over at the MRC, and how the borough is very conscious of not blocking all the parking there and starting the installation, if it does materialize, in June, after most of the spring sports have already begun. And the other thing, Mayor, is our anti-idling committee had a meeting with Bridget and Kathy Cacavalli and Officer Duraco and Lieutenant Plumstead. And we were happy to report that we handed out about 200 of our citations for residents who were not idling and to go redeem at the Madison Bagel for a bagel and coffee, supported by Madison Rotary in part and by the bagel store. And now we're discussing how to reach some of the retail establishments in the borough that tend to have a lot of idling in front of their establishments. Many of them are on private property, so we have to maybe collaborate with the borough to see how to reach them and what can be done to reduce it, so we can have a nice impact on helping the environment you know, and the true forest trees don't have to work as hard, getting all that CO2 out of the air. Is that enough?
Sounds good.
All right.
Great work. Sure. Right. Community Affairs, Ms. Honahan.
Thank you, Mayor. The next regular meeting of the Downtown Development Commission will be held on Thursday, February 22nd at 7:15. It's open to the public, and it is in the Hartley Hodge building here on the second floor. The DDC plans to reinvent the Madison Farmers Market for 2024. It will now be called the Madison Farm and Artisan Market and will be held on Saturdays from May 25 through December 14th in the Prospect Street parking lot from 10 to 3, hoping that the new format will allow for greater participation closer to the heart of Madison. The 2024 Taste of Madison will be taking place on Monday, March 18th at the Madison Hotel. Tickets are available at Gary's, Wine and Marketplace, and tasteofmadison.org. Tickets must be purchased in advance, and guests have to be at least 21 years old. There are 2 levels of tickets. One is a VIP ticket for $125, which allows for early admission and some other special benefits. And the other ticket is $85 and allows for entry to the event, which will begin at 7. It features a silent auction, tricky tray, and 50-50 raffle. Proceeds benefit local charities, business development, and civil improvements in Madison. The Downtown Development Commission launched a total refresh of the event formerly known as May Day last year, and the event is now called Madison Green and Clean. The event will take place on Saturday, April 27th from 9 to 2. The rain date is the next day on Sunday, April 28th, and the annual Arbor Day celebration will kick off the event. This event also features a focus on eco-friendly initiatives. Information on sponsorship, donation, and volunteering is available on RoseNet. From the Chamber of Commerce, the Madison Chamber of Commerce will host some of the community's favorite events again this spring. Find Shelley the Easter Egg scavenger hunt will run from March 9 to 22nd, and Easter Fun Fest will take place on Saturday, March 23rd from 11 to 12:30. Ladies' Night is scheduled for Thursday, March 9th. The Madison Community Arts Center, the monthly music open mic will be held 7 p.m. on Wednesday, February 14th. Music Showcase will be held at 7:30 on Saturday, February 17th, and the monthly comedy open mic will be held on Wednesday, February 21st. The Summit Film Society will screen 2 Oscar-nominated short presentations on Friday, February 23rd. A 3 p.m. showing of short documentaries will be followed by a 7:30 p.m. showing of short live-action films. There's a discount for those who wish to attend both. Information is on the Arts Center webpage. As of February 24th, there are 820 scheduled events at the center. The average hours of use, including event setup and takedown, is 8 hours per day, or nearly 60% of available hours. All events can be found on the MCAC landing page. Thank you.
Very much. And Health, Mr. Forte.
Thank you, Mayor. The Board of Health has been busy assisting the borough with resolving property maintenance issues regarding various residential properties. On tonight's agenda is a resolution increasing the compensation for Senior Office Assistant Janet Wagstaff, who successfully completed the state certification process to become a health registrar. Norovirus cases are on the rise. Personal hygiene practices such as frequent hand washing is recommended. The Emergency Housing Safety Committee that deals with chronic property maintenance issues and resident concerns has been reconstituted and will be meeting in the near future. The Board of Health President and myself as Council Liaison will be participating members. That's all for this evening, Mayor.
Very much. We'll move on to communications and petitions.
Yes, Mayor and Council received a letter dated February the 12th from resident Richard Zipper of Greenwood Avenue regarding yard waste recycling.
Thank you. And now we move on to invitation for public comment. This is one limited to our agenda discussions, and the resolutions are part of the consent agenda. On our agenda discussions tonight, Fire Department budget hearing and EMS update, the Madison Green Infrastructure Plan, and budget hearing, draft budget discussion, and fund balance. So you may comment on those, and these are the items the resolution may comment on. and these are also part of the consent, and please bear with me. With the extra week in between meetings, we have a lot of resolutions. Resolution 61 is authorizing and directing the planning board to conduct a preliminary investigation to determine if real estate property identified as block 3303 lot 2 constitutes an area of non-condemnation area of redevelopment. This is under all the farms. Resolution 62 is approving the salary increase for Janet Wagstaff. As mentioned, that she's now a registered municipal registrar. Resolution 63, appointing Cynthia Mahaffrey to the position of deputy clerk administrator at a compensation of $56,000 annually. Resolution 64 is appointing Michael Philippone, position of public safety telecommunications officer, annual salary of $45,000. Resolution 65 is amending the award contract for purchase of video cameras and security equipment to Johnston Communications of Springfield under Union County Cooperative Pricing Program, and this is not to exceed an additional $100,000 funded through ordinances 43, 2021, 36, 2022, 37, 2022, and 38, 2022, along with the American Rescue Act funding. Resolution 66 is purchase of police vehicle, accessory equipment, and other related equipment from police outside duty, not to exceed $6,000. Resolution 67 is for awarding contract to Riverview Paving for paving improvements under the Morris County Cooperative bid, not to exceed $444,000. This is funded through Ordinance 3, 2024. Resolution 68 is awarding contract for micropave systems for crack sealing under the Morris County Co-op, not to exceed $40,000, also funded through Ordinance 3. Resolution 69 is to Cefali Sun contracting for curb replacement improvements under the Morris County Co-op, not to exceed $30,000, also funded under Ordinance 3. Resolution 70 is contract to Denville line striping for striping work, not to exceed $30,000, also funded under Resolution 3. Resolution 70, or Ordinance 3. Resolution 71 is authorizing the submission of grant application to the County Morris for Community Development Block Grant for installation of ducted air conditioning systems at 24B John Avenue and 28B and C community places in support of the Housing Authority's application. Also, another application is through the home program, and this is $350,000 grant application for replacing rooftop HVAC at Rexford Tucker. And Resolution 73 is approving contract to Melgar cleaning services for the Community Arts Center, Water Light Building, and Police Department, not to exceed $22,780 as part of this year's operating budget. Resolution 74 is authorizing shared service agreement with the Township of Berkeley Heights for IT services, renewal of an agreement we're supplying services, and Resolution 75 is similar one with Mountain Lakes. Resolution 76 is authorizing the annual Little League Parade, so mark your calendars for April 13th at 11 a.m. Resolution 77 is authorizing a special day event permit for Egg Hunt at James Park on Saturday, March 30th. It's going to be hosted by the United Methodist Church. Resolution 78 is authorizing a contract with Stickle, Koenig, Sullivan, and Drill, Esquire, for professional services regarding municipal land use law. Resolution 79 is endorsing the adoption of green building practices for civic, commercial, and residential buildings. Resolution 80 is grant application for community development block grant for Masonic Lodge ADA project. Resolution 81 is confirming membership of Gabriella Scannell, Todd Hasselton in the Madison Hook and Ladder Company number one, so 2 more volunteers. Thank you very much, Chief. Resolution 82 is Morris Municipal Council Fair Housing Resolution. This is the affirmative marketing and related requirements. Resolution 83 is appointing part-time per diem emergency medical technicians to the Madison Fire Department. There's 13 of them, all at the rate of $30 per hour without benefits. Resolution 84 is authorizing professional services contract with Dr. Matthew Letizia as medical director for the Madison Fire Department EMTs. Resolution 85 is awarding a contract to Coronis Health LLC for medical billing services through the Passaic County Cooperative Pricing System. Again, this is related to soft billing. Resolution 86 is a resolution of Borough of Madison appointing Frank Zara to the position of substitute crossing guard at $21.45 an hour. Resolution 87 appointing Lisa Thompson as prosecutor for Borough of Madison and Borough of Chatham, not to exceed $30,000 at a rate of $450 per court session. Resolution 88 is approving raffle license for the AAUW. Resolution 89, raffle licenses for the Madison High School PTSO. And Resolution 90 is supporting a grant application for Dieter funds of $5,845. Our cash match is $1,461 and in-kind is $4,300. And Resolution 91 is authorizing increasing change fund for the court office to $350. So, if you want to comment on any of those, approximately 30 resolutions or the 3 agenda items, you may step up, state your name, your address, and state the resolution or the agenda item you wish to address. If you want to comment on any other topic, as I lose my voice, you have to wait until a later part of the meeting.
Just quickly, I don't really understand the resolution authorizing the planning board to conduct a investigation into block 3303 as an area in need of redevelopment. That's at Drawley, you said?
Correct. And that is the last was home to Pfizer. Is primarily vacant at this point, and it's an ability to look at the property and look at alternate uses and come up with a plan that would fully utilize that property, working with the potential developer and the borough. But the planning board would lead the effort, and it would be approved by the borough council. There is an owner, so it's working with the owner of the property. But it's a very open process led by our planner and the planning board. But this is step one to do the investigation before an actual plan is developed. Anyone else wishing to comment on any of the resolutions? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we now move on to the agenda discussions. Chief.
Good evening. I was in Jim's office today, and he said make sure, being this my first, to really make sure I go all out and talk for at least an hour. So, all right, please bear with me.
Good job.
All right. So this is our call breakdown for last year. As you can see, and as I've talked about it a lot, and especially the council reports, is this was our busiest year in history. A lot of things have led up to the reason why we're so busy. Fire calls are busier, but really the EMS calls has really taken over everything we do. I think it's 44% of all our calls. Just tonight, there's been 3 calls I've listened to tonight. I don't know if you heard my patient go off before, but been very busy. The trend is going up. It's not really going down, but the fire apparatus responses should probably go down as we start getting an ambulance back online 24/7. Want to go to the next slide, Michael? Let's see here. So call types, we had 34 fire-related incidents, which means fire was present at 34 of them. So you can see we had 587 EMS calls. Accidents with injuries were 38. And without injuries, 15. The trend of accidents just keeps kind of ticking up every year a little bit more. People are in a big hurry. A lot of car accidents, but we don't get as many serious injuries as we used to because the car industry has really done a great job of making automobiles so much safer. Cars that would literally just destroy people and actually are built to protect people really well. So we've noticed that injuries with cars, especially fatal accidents, has really dropped over the years. 15 elevator entrapments, and another interesting thing that we do is ring removals. We get a lot of people, actually 2 last year, but the year before that, we get a lot of people that show up with a stuck ring on their finger. And we actually have several tools to safely remove a ring without damaging the ring or the finger. It's actually quite interesting to watch. We've had 133 hazardous conditions, including carbon monoxide alarms, or 4 where there was actually carbon monoxide present, 101 gas leaks. We get a lot of calls for gas leaks because PSE&G doesn't like to get a call and say, hey, I smell gas. So after you call PSE&G, they immediately call the fire department because they want the responsibility to kind of lift it off of them a little bit. They know we'll get anywhere in Madison in about 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. And usually their response is within an hour. So that's why we go to so many gas leaks now. 351 fire alarms, mostly due to cooking, defective detectors. That trend of false carbon monoxide alarms has gone down as technology with carbon monoxide alarms has gotten better. Again, we recommend that they're all replaced within 10 years. 52 public assist. The police department does automobile lockouts, and we do house lockouts, 16 of those. And then 23 lift assist is when somebody actually has fallen and they can't get up and they need help. And so we go to a lot of calls where it's not a medical emergency, they just have a difficult time getting up. So we send 2 people over, we help them get up, and we make sure that they're fit, they're medically okay and clear, and then we just return back to the firehouse. There's no transportation to the hospital. 19 mutual aid assignments. At 7, we went out of town 19 times. A bunch of those we count as Route 24, or anything on Route 24 is a tri-town response of Chatham, Borough, us, and Florham Park. We kind of divide it up. The problem is when people call 911 to say there's something on Route 24, they can never tell you exactly where they are. So we go to the Greenwood Bridge, Chatham gets on by the mall, and Florham Park gets on over at Columbia Turnpike, and so we kind of like stage and wait until we find out where the incident on 24 is. Next slide, please. No, stuck. Fire prevention. We continue to do our commercial inspections, our safe housing inspections. Every time a house is sold in Madison, by law, it has to be inspected for carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. As you know, the housing and real estate market in Madison is very hot, and so we go on quite a bit of these, usually several of them a day. Fire safety programs, school visits, K through 5, we saw 400 preschool kids, 100 seniors and adults, and about 2,200 pre-K through 8th grade. We do an excellent program for fire safety with them, and every year it just gets, we have a couple programs that every year get upgraded, and really, Captain Nunn organizes that. It really does a nice job with it. Senior citizen house visits and smoke detector battery replacements. We provide free of charge smoke detectors for senior citizens. If they need a smoke detector, or if they think they do, we'll go to their house, we'll do an inspection, and then we'll replace them and make sure there's one on every floor where it's needed, and then also replace their carbon monoxide detector. We get these detectors from the American Red Cross, and this program has been very successful over the years. And we even used to go out and change their batteries for free, but now the smoke detectors that we give out actually have a 10-year sealed battery. So we've noticed that our battery replacements have really dropped off because the batteries now, like I said, last 10 years. So, next one there. So we added 4 volunteers last year, and actually we added 2 more tonight. We did lose 2, but we're up to 6 since about this time last year. So we're starting to generate some interest in the fire department, which is nice. Again, we're always trying to find the younger crowd that wants to stick around and be on the fire department for a while. It takes a while to kind of train these people, but we've noticed a kind of an uptick where people seem to kind of really be interested. And we're kind of trying to work with them and keep people organized. And I got to give a hand to a lot of our volunteers that have been on for a while. They've kind of really started to embrace the new members and make sure that they're really getting along and like enjoy it and kind of encourage them to kind of stay on. Most of the time when we lose people, it's because they move away, like a job or school, or a lot of them just go south. But we are seeing a small uptick.
Geographically south.
Geographically south. That's right. Good call. We hired 3 career firefighters last year. This is the first time in Madison history, or the fire department history, there was actually 3 brand new Pro-B firefighters. It's been an interesting challenge, but again, the senior and the veteran firefighters have done an outstanding job of stepping up and training them, and not only that, but training them quickly. 2 of them are already EMTs. They graduated very quickly. They're doing great with it, and the 3rd one is about 2 weeks out from graduating, and I don't expect any problems with him. He's doing a really good job. Again, I can't say enough about how well these guys make sure that the new people are trained. I mean, they're on top of them, and it's really a joy to watch how seriously they take it. National Night Out, we partnered with the police department. That's been very successful. We really enjoy helping out the police department. It's a great event downtown. We were all down on Waverly at the end last year. That was great. Day of service, when we bring the high school kids, we have one day where we'll kind of bring them in, kind of try to nudge them a little bit to say maybe you want to volunteer one day, and they help us out around the firehouse. We teach them about our job. We got our new engine 3, which was a rescue pumper, which replaced our rescue truck and our 1989 or 90 engine. That's in service, doing well. And we also had a joint 2-day trench rescue drill, which we trained with the Cedar Knolls Fire Department, the Whippany Fire Department, and we weren't able to do it with Morristown this year. But this year, when we do it again, Morristown, and we're also partnering with the largest career fire department in Morris County, which is Picatinny Arsenal, which wants to get involved with training with us. They have a lot of great equipment and federal dollars to help spend on our training. Matter of fact, they're actually putting on a class for a confined space, which we do, and they're paying for it. So they're going to pay for the training, so we don't have to hire somebody to provide that training like we usually do. And we also did a New Jersey transit drill where we started to realize there's a lot of trains that go through town, and these trains carry a lot of people. We wanted to make sure that we were really prepared, that God forbid there was ever any type of incident. So we had a representative from New Jersey Transit come in, go over the trains, and then I sent half of the fire department to the rail yard in Kearney, where they actually boarded the trains and went over all the safety features. And I'm looking forward to, I hopefully soon, to send the other 6 that had not gone. So the next one is our goals. Our goal right now, our big goal right now, which I work on every day. I can't tell you how hard that we've been working on this, but it's to establish and implement and sustain our new EMS program. We're there. We're just about there. It's been quite the task, and I was warned that trying to build this from scratch was going to be something. But again, the theme of the night is I've had amazing help from not only the fire department, the ambulance corps, but some of the staffs here, Michael and Jim, have been great with really helping. Any questions or help I've needed, everybody's really stepped up, and I'm going to be real proud of this when it gets off the ground. It's going to be great. We're going to recruit new volunteers, which we seem to be doing a pretty good job of that. The word's getting out that we're building something good here, and we want our new volunteers. Even our old volunteers, we need to get their responses up. People are very busy. People are working more than one job. People are working 2 jobs. They get home late. Last thing they want to do is go to a fire alarm at 3 o'clock in the morning. But we're working on it. 9% average response is not great. But part of that is they realize that there is an on-duty fire department that's there 24/7, 365. So the feeling is, well, they'll just take care of it. But we need help. We need help, and we're getting them motivated to come out is one of our goals more. But they've recognized it, and they know when we're taking steps to try to make that better. We want to continue training. Training is very important to me. We train up at the Morris County Fire Academy, which has been great. And we also want to kind of highlight that our confined space and our trench rescue team is really going to, with the help of Picatinny and Morristown, is going to be pretty in depth. But the training, again, I'm excited that the federal dollars coming in to pay for this is going to be great. And it's also going to be held at the Morris County Fire Academy, and then the trench class we'll have again here in Madison, off by the FM Kirby Center. The next one, so we'll do the EMS update where we are with this. We're about 75 to 85% done. Everything I do, I send to the state for their approval. They approved our initial license, but they have some small things that they require that I wasn't fully aware of. One of them was the markings of the ambulance has to match what's on the license, which is the town name and the town fire department. So I've worked with some members of the ambulance corps in the borough, and that's going to be taken care of this week. The state actually asked for pictures of the ambulance before you do it. I wanted to make sure that it was state approved, and then they'll actually come and inspect every little nook and cranny of each ambulance. We have 13 per diems that are on the agenda tonight to ready to start going. We did a great job of going through a pretty good number of applicants to make sure we got a lot of good people that will fit and will work well in town. We're probably going to bring that to maybe 15, but we have 2 that are kind of outliers waiting to see if we're going to move forward with them, but we wanted to make sure that there was enough work for them to do, so we didn't want to go too crazy yet. But again, these are part-time employees. They're not working full-time. We are starting to buy the equipment for the ambulance corps, or for the EMS thing, as we've taken over kind of purchasing the equipment to help the ambulance corps out. And then we talked about the relettering. The medical director and the billing, which is also on tonight, we're required to have a medical director, and the medical director doesn't just approve your policies and how you operate in the EMS world. They actually provide the training, the updates that we have to go through for, let's say, like an EpiPen, Narcan training, and all sorts of things like that the medical director will provide. We did a big search to try to find somebody that was wanting to get into this. The doctor is fantastic. He's an ER doctor, and he's really into the emergency services, and he's pretty hands-on, so we're excited. Our targeted goal is to have this up and running in 18 days by March 1st. Biggest thing that we need to get now, and now that the ambulances are going to get done this week, is uniforms, believe it or not. They're tricky to get. There's high demand. I went to one place, and they said that the Newark Fire Department came in and bought 80 sets of gear, and they took everything, so we're kind of wait for everything to get replenished. But we're on our way to getting hopefully the uniforms by the end of the month, and hopefully we'll have an ambulance ready to go by March 1st. Next one. Capital budget. You see we replace 2 to 3 sets of turnout gear a year. The cost is rising. I was only able to buy 3 sets this year because the cost has gone up. But the good news is we've done such a good job over the years of buying gear that we're really not falling behind. They have about a 10-year life before they're not accepted by NFPA standards anymore. And as we went through people's gear, we realized that they've done such a good job. We've all done such a good job of buying gear over the year that we're really pretty much caught up, that we only do need a few sets a year. But then we started to get a rash of new volunteers, and so now it's the new game of finding gear for them and communication equipment like pagers. Replacement of SCBA cylinders, it's for 2027, $40,000. I'm going to try to apply for a grant for that. I was successful in getting an SCBA grant for our breathing cylinders in our back about 10 years ago. I'm hoping that by the time that we get to 2027 in that area, we'll be out of 2 standards and we can apply for a FEMA grant for them again. I have on here also the replacement of the 1998 Engine 2, which is budgeted out for $300,000 each year. Replace the Chief's vehicle, $75,000 this year, and then the last on here is the Knoxbox e-lock system, which is basically, without getting into too much of operational security, it's the way that we access businesses and residences when they're closed. We just want to make sure that we need to secure it more. There's a 2-form factor, kind of like when you're getting like a password, you have to put a 2-form factor into something. This is kind of adding a 2-form factor to guarantee the security of these locks when we enter businesses and residences when they're not there. We are a combination fire department. We're present staffing is 14, including myself. We have 18 volunteers, 20 now that we're probably adding 2 more tonight, 7 suppressions and 10 support. We have 2 firefighters that are in the fire academy right now, doing really well. One of them, she's fantastic. You guys approved her not too long ago. She's actually, I met with someone from the fire academy the other day, and they said that she is something else. She actually made team leader. She's really doing well up there. So Madison's very well represented up at the fire academy, doing great. Very proud of them. Hopefully the two new ones that joined, and I got a third, will be going to the fire academy in the fall when the next firefighter 1 class is up. Questions?
Thank you very much, Chief. And just 2 quick comments, and I'll get from the council. But one, very impressive with EM. You know, this is a major undertaking, and I knew it was in great hands. But to see the report, you're really impressed upon, you know, how the speed you're attacking this at.
Thank you. It's been a lot.
And the other comment is you talked a little bit about how your veterans take the training seriously, but we know from our interview process how seriously you took training and your experience in making sure people were well trained. So it sounds like that's all trickling down, and training not only helps our residents, but it helps your retention. A well-trained employee is someone that likes to stay. So thank you for your leadership there.
Thank you.
Bob?
I can't say enough. Volunteering is key for us to keep this Madison. Yes. I know I believe it's all I'm doing the Tom Harrell improvements right now.
If I watch you, Tom.
Yeah, you know, he's just across me. What can I tell you? I think in Monmouth County, the Sheriff's Department,
yes,
the EMS, because they cannot get enough volunteers, and I have to believe that it hurts the response time if there's a medical call. So you've done a great job, and I really appreciate the fact that everything is headquartered and housed within Madison. So just keep going the way you're going. I can't say enough.
Thank you. Yeah, Monmouth County had the slowest response times in New Jersey, and they invested $5 million into a new EMS countywide program, which Morris County kind of has a small one.
Yeah.
Not like this. And the volunteer side of it, it's not just us that's hurting. As we've talked about, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we were dispatched to a neighboring town today for a structure fire this morning, and we were the first to arrive to this town with the city of Summit before their fire department arrived.
Really?
Yes. But the good news is it wasn't a fire. But you know, when I talk to their chief, you know, the frustrations are there. It's everywhere. It's actually national.
So I can't say again how great it is to have you and this group in this town doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And Rachel and then Eric.
Thanks, Mayor. Chief, I will just echo what Bob said. I'm so impressed with the way you've managed to attract volunteers. It's a delight to this year have approved so many volunteers to serve. So thank you for your efforts in that regard. It's really impressive. 2 things I want to ask about. One was that you mentioned for the EMS response that accidents with injury have gone down because cars are safer for the car drivers and passengers. But I was looking back at the Madison Police reported crash statistics in 2020, 2021, and 2022. This was in Chief Mish's budget report last year. In 2020, the police responded to 209 crash investigations. In 2021, it was 292. And in 2022, they had 334 crash investigations. That increased by 50% in 2 years, which is just shocking to me. So I'm interested to know if going forward, you could help us understand, we know that cars are getting safer for drivers and passengers, but as they get bigger and go faster and more recklessly, there's been a nationwide and a statewide trend of more drivers injuring the vulnerable people who are walking or riding bikes on our streets. And I'd be interested to know if EMS call trends in Madison for those kinds of injuries have increased at the same rate that our crash investigations have increased. I don't expect you to have that data on hand tonight, but it'd be interesting over time to understand how much at risk people who are not in these cars are, and it'll help us make good decisions about how we can protect the other users of our sidewalks and roads. So something to think about for future reports.
Absolutely.
And you also mentioned, you pointed out that we have a billing vendor contract on tonight's agenda. Can you just, for all of us, briefly summarize what soft billing is in a very high-level way, what that will entail?
Sure, we're calling it actually, the term that's used most widely in the industry is balanced billing. For instance, you as a provider, you don't have to balance bill a resident because basically the borough would be subsidizing the cost. So if you're a private entity, let's say like the paramedics come to your house, which is based out of Atlantic Health, they by law have to balance bill you. So if they bill you a certain dollar amount, let's say $2,500, if you don't pay them the money, they put you in collections. We don't have to do that. What we basically will do is we won't balance bill. We send your insurance company a bill. Whatever they pay, that's what you get, and you don't go after the balance that wasn't paid. There is certain rules about Medicare and Medicaid that you have to make 3 reasonable attempts, but usually that's just to collect insurance information, but it doesn't mean that you're going after them to like balance bill like $50 if that's what the balance was that needed to be paid. So the billing company is set up where they say, okay, we don't bill Madison residents beyond whatever their insurance pays. So in most cases, no one would ever even see a bill.
So if a resident gets a notice or a letter from that looks like a bill, I'm hoping that we can give them some reassurance of what they might expect going forward.
Sure, as long as the paper, whatever they received, clearly explain what it was. Again, most of it's just getting the information that might have been missed, like maybe a number from an insurance card. But one thing that I did not mention beside on the EMS charts, which is our new software that we're using, it is actually tied in with the hospitals where we can pull information from the hospitals. So if we miss something, we're able to, whoever wrote that chart is able to actually pull data and get that information. So most of the times people won't even see a bill because we'll be able to get that information.
Thank you.
And Eric?
Thanks, Chief. Once again, awesome job getting the EMS operations up and running. I know we've had a bunch of phone calls about it, and of course all the support you've gotten from your team. I know the stories you've told me of firefighters and the lieutenants and everyone who's been kind of helping you along the way, and it's really been a whole department effort to get this service going for our residents, and it's your leadership that has really done that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Loving seeing kind of the more specialized trainings and kind of growing our knowledge, especially the New Jersey Transit piece. I think that's really interesting. So again, thank you for your leadership in that. Just curious, and Rachel sort of touched upon it, but seeing 6 new volunteers in really anything in the borough at this point is pretty astronomical, let alone a volunteer position that we're asking people to potentially put their lives on the line. So just curious what recruitment strategies and new programs that you might have done, or are they just following the Pied Piper?
A lot of it is I think word's kind of getting out there that what we're doing, what we're kind of building, something that hasn't really been done around here in a while. I can't think of very many in this general area of where we've kind of combined with the ambulance corps while keeping everything kind of intact. And I think that the hiring of the 14th firefighter, I think that attracted people that down the road that might be saying, hey, like maybe I want to volunteer there. Maybe someday there'll be a job for me. Matter of fact, I had a 20-year-old kid come in last week I interviewed that's in the pipeline to join too. So he hopefully will be on your table in the next month or so to approve. So I think just kind of stuff like that, I think the word is out there, and I think our guys have done a good job of trying to attract people. But the target audience that we're really having the hardest is like, even though I just said a 20-year-old, is getting the younger person involved. That has been, I joined the Madison Fire Department when I was 20 years old, and a lot of the senior members over there, I can't believe I'm saying that.
Sneaks up on you.
It really does. I joined the New Vernon Fire Department in 1993 when I was 18 years old because I thought the idea of a volunteer firefighter was out of this world. It was outrageous. I'm from Los Angeles. I lived in St. Louis and Chicago. And when I moved here and I heard what a volunteer firefighter was, I was kind of dumbfounded. I'm like, well, what happens if there's a real fire? and because of my conversation in high school, I'm standing here in front of you today. And I think that's the hard part, is trying to motivate. You know, it's hard to find someone to be a plumber, an electrician, you know, a volunteer. And I think that we're doing a pretty good job of starting to kind of really get that word out to the younger people. And I'm hoping to see more and more younger people in the near future.
Thanks so much. And I mean, that kind of leads us right into, you know, since we did hire those 3 firefighters last year, we're going to need a new hiring list soon. So
Yes, that's another, it's on my pile. I'm working on it. That's a hard thing to navigate, trying to figure out all the rules for that. I need to work with the administration.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Tom?
All right, Chief. Echo, echo, echo. So we don't have to say what they said. It was great. Great presentation, Chief. Question for you is, what do you do now for your EMS calls if you're not going out in the ambulance?
So when we receive a medical call during the day, we send 2 firefighters, and we have this, they call it the closest unit dispatch. If Madison Ambulance can't provide an ambulance, the computer-aided dispatch system at the police department, which is tied into Morris County, will track down GPS the closest available ambulance. But we do have a partnership with Morris County Office of Emergency Management, which provides an ambulance on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays during the day. And then I am in contact with their director almost daily, trying to find an ambulance from them at night. And I've been able to get them a lot of times. I get them down here on a Saturday or a Tuesday night or a Monday night. Actually, tonight was one of the nights that I actually couldn't get an ambulance from them. If not, we're getting an ambulance usually from Florham Park on that side of town, Chatham on that side of town, and then Atlantic Health will send an ambulance for anything on the Drew side of town. So it's kind of been a challenge to get an ambulance. Tomorrow, the ambulance, I believe, is going to be in the Morristown Beard area, so I'm probably going to staff an ambulance in Madison with the daytime crews to make sure during the snowstorm that there's a quick response.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Chief. And then, so how much training is required for somebody to be a volunteer? Fireman.
So they have to go to the fire academy up in Parsippany, and it's usually 19 weeks. And it's when I say 19 weeks, the 2 that are in the fire academy right now, they go every Tuesday night and then all day on Saturday. And so that started in January, and they'll be graduating in, I want to say it's June. And then the next one starts in August and goes to December.
Wow, that's great. Do they take old people like me?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jobs are right. Good sweep. And then, you get a new car?
Yes.
Yeah, is it going to be electric?
It probably, probably something in the hybrid thing, electric. I've been talking to the Borough Garage about some of their issues with the hybrid cars, so I'll figure something out.
So hopefully the new ones are much better. If you can maneuver that, that'd be great. Thank you.
You'd be surprised if one was going to join the other night.
Yeah.
Someone you know. At the thing we're at, maybe played professional hockey, so we're working on it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you, Chief. So first of all, thank you for opening your doors and giving a new council member a tour of the fire department, including letting me sit there and watch the closest unit's dispatch in action, because that was pretty cool to see how all of that works. And you gave me a lot of perspective as I came in. But I really want to commend you. You heard a lot of those comments tonight, but it's not easy to walk into your shoes, into the role that you're in today. But you also came in at a time when there was a lot of change, and when your department was taking on a lot more than any fire chief before you really had to deal with. And I think you've done it really well, and you have a tremendous responsibility, and I think you're quite aware of that. It shows with everything that you do, and certainly, I think this council has an appreciation for that, and you have a lot of support, as you saw in 2023. So hopefully you feel that. Because certainly I think it's very sincere from this group. Just a question, do you think there's an opportunity to revive the Explorers in the high school? Because I know when I was there, that's where a lot of the guys that we knew back in the day, that's how they joined.
Sure.
Is that a possibility?
Even beyond that, we're looking at a possible junior program, which they actually have at the fire academy, where they accept younger, well, I don't want to say kids, but younger adults that are 16 and 17. They're able to go to the fire academy, and then when they turn 18, they're actually issued their Firefighter 1 certificate. And that is something that we've been looking at too. Matter of fact, I worked at the fire academy for about 5 years, and I was in charge of a junior class over the summer. And of the 25 kids that were in that class that I was in charge of, I believe 12 of them are career firefighters somewhere. So that is, a lot of them go down to Maryland, and one of them actually worked for the Madison Fire Department and abandoned us for DC. But I wish him all the best. But a lot of them, that's who we want to attract. And if we can get people that are interested in firefighting and get them into a junior program like this, it's only going to benefit us down the road, because hopefully we can get them to stay. But yeah, that is something that we're looking at. But the Explorer program isn't really around as much as I thought it was, but we could look into it. But the junior program is something I really want to look into.
And is that something you would engage the Madison Public Schools in?
Definitely. And I think once word gets out there, if we're able to build something that's professional for the younger kids that come in, using the career staff and the volunteers to really engage it, put something together, I think that it could be very successful.
Okay.
I mean, some towns it's a little out of control, but other towns I would like to model of how well of a program they do. So like a Morse Plains does a pretty good job with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Very well done.
Welcome. I know, less than an hour, Jim. Sorry, he said 4 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, you were somewhere between.
Somewhere between. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right, we'll now move on to our Madison Green Infrastructure Plan.
Oh, I have it on my screen, but thank you.
Also, copies of the plan here. I only made 6 because I want to.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was told I had 9.5 minutes, so I'm going to try to go quick. My name is Chris Abrupta. I'm with Rutgers University. I'm the Extension Specialist in Water Resources. For Rutgers Cooperative Extension, I teach environmental engineering in the Environmental Science Department on Cook Campus down in New Brunswick. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk to you today about stormwater management really quickly. We have some really great stormwater regulations in New Jersey, but mostly they're for new development or major development, so it's development that's greater than 1 acre. You as a municipality can change that and kind of apply those to smaller developments, but what's really happening in the state is the flooding and water quality issues are being caused by historic development that was built before we had stormwater regulations. So what we're trying to do at Rutgers is we're trying to work with communities, go in and retrofit that older development with stormwater management so we can reduce flooding and improve water quality. Next slide, please. So we do that with green infrastructure. Next slide. So the idea with green infrastructure, instead of building that big basin at the bottom of the hill to capture all the stormwater from the development, now we're sprinkling stormwater management in throughout the entire development, trying to capture water where it lands before it starts running across the ground, picking up pollution, going downstream. So putting things at the end of downspouts, next to roads, capturing it, filtering it, absorbing the water, and in some cases reusing the water. Next slide. So these are the practices that we typically use. Bioretention is like the technical name for it. Most people know this as rain gardens. Shallow landscape depressions usually fill with 3 to 12 inches of water when it rains. That water slowly percolates into the ground over the next 12 hours. They're great systems. They usually are designed to manage 1.25 inches of rain. In New Jersey, 90% of our storm events come in storms that are less than 1.25 inches. We at Rutgers have been designing to manage a 2-year storm, which is like 3 to 4 inches of rain, because of climate change and rainfalls getting more intense, so you do much better. Permeable pavements, another thing we're talking about, and I'll show you little examples of each of these. And rainwater harvesting, these are the 3 ones that we typically use. Next slide, please. So, you know, I went to college, I got a PhD in civil engineering, but the bottom line is it's all about managing stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces. It's real simple. I could show you all these crazy equations up here, but it's not important. I mean, we just have to capture this water and not let it get into the catch basins, get it back into the ground, not into people's basements, but into the ground. Next slide, please. So a lot of times we're using these rain gardens, so we're cutting the downspout, we're putting it in a garden. Now your lawn can absorb maybe the first half inch of rain from your rooftop, but this garden I can design to capture 2, 3, even 4 inches of rain from rooftops. So that's what's really important. We had a storm, I guess, a few weeks ago, dumping a lot of water in Somerset County where I live. It was 2 to 3 inches of rain, and the entire town of Hillsborough was flooded, and we couldn't get out of town. So it doesn't take a lot in New Jersey to flood out roads. Next slide. So these are all different types of rain gardens that we have. We do a lot with kids in schools, not because we're trying to educate them, but because we think of them as free labor. And they're short, closer to the ground, so it's easier for them to plant, so it's really nice. And then we try to do stuff like in the center. It's a corporate center, and we got people coming out of the office on a Friday to help us build stuff. So a lot of this stuff is done with volunteers. You've been hearing volunteer firemen. We heard volunteers earlier today, but a lot of this stuff is done with volunteers. Next slide. This is one of my landscape architects. In this case, we built this garden, but we didn't want to get rid of the dirt because it costs money to haul that stuff away. So we mounted it up in the back, gave this a little contour, and it looks beautiful, right? Next slide. Another one at a library. You can see all the plants in there, pollinator plants, beautiful plants, attracting butterflies, a nice multi-stem river birch, but it's managing all the runoff from that parking lot. Next slide. This is one that was built in Hillsborough at the municipal building. Hillsborough did not want a rain garden at the municipal building. We had gotten a grant to put one there, and then we told them that, well, if you don't want it, we're going to give your money to the next town, their rival town, and all of a sudden they wanted it there. So we built this, and now every time they send out a calendar, this is on the front page of the calendar, so something they didn't want, they really kind of take credit for it now. But it's beautiful because in Halloween, they put scarecrows in here. This is the municipal building, the library. There's benches here now where people can actually sit and read. At Christmas, they put Christmas lights in this, and they put Santa Claus here at the end of the path, and people meander to the rain garden to go ask Santa for Christmas gifts. Next slide. The other thing we do a lot of is permeable pavement. So I was driving around here before I got here. There's a lot of parking lots. The pavement we have now is designed so water can't go through it. It runs off. If water goes through the pavement, it sits right below it, freezes, expands, contracts, we get potholes. Well, we're using now porous asphalt. So we're letting water go through that surface, but we have a stone layer underneath where it goes into, and it slowly percolates into the ground. Next slide. And you can see this stone layer. So for every 2.5 gallons of stone, I can store a gallon of water into that parking lot. Okay? And because the water passes through that surface very quickly, we don't get that freezing, and we don't get those potholes. The only difference between pervious pavement and regular and traditional pavement is that this doesn't stain when it rains because the water doesn't sit on the surface. It always looks like it's new. So it's really a great tool. We should use this in every parking lot in New Jersey. Next slide. So this is a parking lot we did in Clark, New Jersey. You can see the cartway here is regular asphalt, and the side here is permeable or porous asphalt. So the water runs off of that and goes right into the ground and right into the stone layer. Next slide. We also use these grass pavers, a lot of for overflow parking. Like I'm a devout Catholic, so I go to church twice a year, Christmas and Easter, and I always have to park in that back lot. That's beautifully paved lot. Nobody ever parks there. And you can put this stuff there, and it's great because the water goes right through this, goes into the ground. It's great for stormwater management. Next slide. Okay, so we looked at the town of the borough of Madison. We tried to figure out, where the impervious surfaces were. There's 4 watersheds in Madison. You guys are kind of like at the top of the hill. I don't know why you have 2 rivers named Black River or Black Brook. It's really very weird. You have Black Brook that goes to Whippany, Black Brook that goes to Passaic. You guys are supposed to really like that name. And then there's the Upper Passaic River and Lontanka. Is that how you say it?
Lowanaka.
Lowanaka?
Yeah, the proper name is probably Lowantaka, but we all say Lowanaka.
Okay, got it. Next slide, please. So what I did was actually calculate the amount of impervious cover, and you can see for each of the different watersheds you have an impervious cover. But on the whole, the borough of Madison has got about 35% impervious cover. So impervious cover is any surface that water doesn't pass through. So it should be the roof of my building, an environmental science building at Rutgers, but at least like a sieve, so that doesn't count. But usually it's the roof of your house, parking lots, driveways, sidewalks. So we know that from literature, from research, that once you get beyond 10% impervious cover, your waterways start to become impaired. Once you get beyond 25% impervious cover, your waterways are non-supportive, very degraded. And we're here at 35%. Now, you don't really have a lot of water directly in town, but you're feeding a lot of waterways into the headwaters. So that's a big issue that we want to try to address. Next slide. Now, this is in your handouts. I'm not going to go through this, but we actually went ahead and calculated the volume of water that runs off the impervious cover for different storms. So we looked at the 1.25 inch rain, we looked at 50 inches of rain, which is your annual rainfall in Morris County, average, and then the 2-year, 10-year, and 100-year storm. So the 2-year storm, the 10-year storm, the 100-year storm, those numbers are what DEP predicts for the year 2100. So those are climate change numbers. Now, the 100-year storm doesn't come once every 100 years. The chance of getting that this year is 1 in 100. So that's where the 100 comes from, okay? But you can see these waters. These are in millions of gallons, okay? It's a lot of water. Next slide. So we went ahead and the young ladies over here gave me 65 properties that are municipally owned in Madison for us to look at. Now, we only usually do 20 or 30, but they said, no, you're doing 65 for Madison. So I said, okay, and they bought me pizza, and it's okay, that's fine, we can do that. So we went, we saw all these sites, and we actually found 18 of them were really great for putting in green infrastructure. So those are the ones that we actually have in the plan. You go next slide. For each site, we have a sheet like this, which kind of talks a little bit about the site. I know this has a different name. Is this a different name for this, right? It's something with Dodge, some Dodge person.
That's correct.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
You got that
okay.
correct.
So that's okay. So anyway, so we look at the impervious cover here, and here we're recommending bioretention systems or rain gardens. So we always have a sheet like this, and the next slide will show you what we really show. So we're showing you where the rain gardens go, right? And then we actually the little green spots. We're going to take the road runoff. The next slide will actually show you a rendering that we've done. So we have our landscape architects take the photograph and then put the pretty picture on it, what it's going to look like. Now, for our landscape architects, every flower blooms the same exact time for this picture, which really doesn't happen, right? But it gives you an idea of what it could look like, right? So this is more of a natural look, more of a wildflower look. We've also done these as very manicured gardens where you have mulch between them, the plants, and they look more like a traditional garden. So next slide. We looked at the Public Works Department. Lots of opportunities here. You can go to the next slide. You can see there's rain gardens we could put in. There's actually a place for a cistern in here. And then for the next slide, we had rendered in a cistern, the before picture and the after picture. That little box next to the building will hold 530 gallons of water. So we thought that the Public Works Department could take that, fill their water truck, use the water plants. Pretty easy to do, right? The problems with cisterns is they don't work unless you use them between storms, and they don't really do anything. Wow, losing my mind. Okay, next slide. So we went ahead and the Madison Library looked at too. Now we got a porous pavement in the corner, and then there's a big spot for a rain garden here at the bottom, and that's something we really want to get into. So next slide. So what's happened here is this is called a Green Infrastructure Action Plan. And this gets submitted to Sustainable Jersey, gets Sustainable Jersey points. The town actually has what's called an MS4 permit. The M stands for municipal, the 4 S's stand for separate storm source system. This is the permit that requires you to do street sweeping, clean catch basins, all those kind of things. Every town in New Jersey has one of those permits. The permit's a 5-year permit. This is the second year. The permit just started last month. By the end of the 5th year, you have to submit to DEP a watershed improvement plan. Now, watershed improvement plan, what it does is it requires you to go through your town and identify where you can retrofit property with projects, which is exactly what I've given you here. So this is really a great foundation for that plan. You'll be able to give this to your engineer. He or she won't be able to charge you $100,000 now for the plans because you have a lot of it done already. So this is kind of one thing that we're trying to help people get to understand. Now on Saturday, I'm going to be here Saturday morning from 9 to noon, I think, and then they're going to feed me, I hope. So we're going to do some training. I'm going to train people on how to go out and identify more sites and then add more sites, because the next plan we're going to do is called the strategic plan, and that's going to be kind of a little more long-term, bigger vision, and that'll accompany what we're doing here. So you can see the final slide. We have some information about some of this stuff. What's nice about this is we'll put all this stuff online on the website, and then when you have a Boy Scout who wants to do an Eagle project, you know, you can say, hey, go look at the website. Maybe there's a rain garden you could build, right? I know I'm on my environmental commission. The Scouts hound me all the time, Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. So it's a great place to kind of direct them to think about it. And, you know, the other thing is we have something in here about stormwater utilities. We're not recommending Madison start a utility, but that's always an option. Stormwater utility, basically, like we have a water utility, we pay water bills for water we use. Stormwater utility, you pay a monthly fee or an annual fee based on your impervious cover, right? So this way, for a single-family homeowner, you may pay $60 a year, and that goes into a pot that helps fix all the stormwater problems in town. But if you're a big business, big warehouse, you have lots of parking, you pay a much higher fee. And the idea with the fee is it's a fee, not a tax, because a fee you don't have to pay. So if you're a homeowner, you don't want to pay the $60 a year, you could put in a rain garden, you could do something different and reduce the amount of impervious cover you have or the effect of that impervious cover, and your fee goes down. So this gets private property owners to actually invest their own money into dealing with stormwater management. So it's another way of doing that. It's allowed in New Jersey. We've yet to have a town or county do this, although there's a lot looking into it. About 35 of them are exploring this option. So it could be something you guys might want to think about. That's it. That's all I have. Next slide. Am I done? There, I'm done. Is that 10 minutes? 10 minutes? Any questions?
Yep.
Excellent.
You were a little over the 10, but you were you were very entertaining. So we'll
okay, that's good. It's all right there. Good.
I think it was very informative, and I know this is just the beginning. One quick question that always comes up is that impervious pavement surfaces need maintenance, or they lose their.
Yeah, I mean, so porous asphalt will actually infiltrate at 1,000 inches per hour through that surface. Now, if we get a rain that's 1,000 inches per hour, well, we better be putting animals on ARC 2x2, right? That's really crazy. But so even if 90% of it clogs, you're still getting 100 inches per hour in there, right? So what you have to do with the porous asphalt is you have to vacuum it like twice a year, which is not really a big deal, but it's important, you know. So my team has actually clogged the porous asphalt parking spaces. We had a dump truck on there, they were loading dirt on, got dirt all over, and we came in with a power washer. In 4 hours, we cleaned the whole spaces out, and it worked fine after that. So even if it does get clogged, you can fix it, right? Now, remember, everything needs maintenance, especially these rain gardens, right? But we maintain everything. Our driveways need to be sealed, our roofs need to be maintained. So we don't let maintenance scare us, especially when it's these natural systems, because if you go out once a month, you do a little bit of weeding, it's not a big deal. But if you wait to the end of the year, you do it once a year, then it's a big deal, right? So, and the other option too is that when we build these things with communities, we'll come out the first year and help them take care of it the first year, so they understand how to do it. So we'll help organize volunteers. You've got a very young, sustainable Madison team here, so I'm sure they'd love to get out there and do a lot of that maintenance. So, anything else? Good?
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, sir. Okay, so I'm with Cooperative Extension Service, so my job is to extend the knowledge of the university out to the state and help them solve their problems. I have 8 full-time staff who work for me. I have a professional engineer, professional landscape architect on staff. Some people have been with me 8 years. In the summer, we hire anywhere between 10 to 20 full-time undergrad students, and we bring them all over the state and teach them how to do this stuff. So we do have a lot of students. A lot of times we have to teach them which end of the shovel goes in the ground. A lot of them don't know that, but it's a lot of fun to work with them. It makes me feel young sometimes. But yeah, we do have a full staff. Yeah.
So you're actually sanctioned by the DEP also to be able to touch waterways or to somehow?
Well, anything I do, I still have to get permits for projects. This stuff doesn't really require permits because we're out of the floodplain, we're out of the wetlands. You don't want to put a rain garden in the wetlands because you want it to infiltrate. Wetlands don't infiltrate. So we're really careful about what we do. We are starting to do more lake projects now where we do shoreline restoration. We have to get permits for that. So we'll help people get permits too. We don't like doing that, but we do that sometimes. So.
Okay. That's great. Thank you so much.
Cool. All right.
Rachel?
I just want to thank you for the presentation, and especially thank the Sustainable Madison Advisory Committee members who are here, who worked really hard to win this $20,000 grant. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Kathy. And bring Chris to us, because this has been really eye-opening, and I'm so glad that we were able to benefit from your knowledge and this excellent survey and report, thanks to our hardworking volunteers. So thank you, SMAC.
Well, now what's interesting is Caldwell did the same thing. They got a $20,000 grant, and they did the same thing. Then they just got an $80,000 grant to build more rain gardens based on the plan that we had done. So there's money out there to do more of this. So I know these guys are going to keep writing grants
That's our specialty in Madison.
You got a great team, so great work, and after your 9 to 12 on Saturday, you've earned a great Madison lunch, so make sure they take it. All right.
Thank you, sir. This was great.
You could just, we'll figure it
If we go to this website, what will we see, Professor?
What's that?
If we go to your website, what are we going to see?
Every picture of students where I work.
That's it?
A lot of stuff on our website about bringing infrastructure.
Okay.
Okay, got 2 left.
We'll share.
Okay.
Thank you.
And this one's on single page on double sides as you drop.
All right. Thank you very much. We now move on to our budget hearing with draft budget discussion and fund balance.
10 minutes.
Oh, Jim Burnett.
I can go fast. I can go super fast.
No, don't do that.
No worries. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you all. Councilwoman Ehrlich explained what we're doing here this evening. This is the proposed budget hearing schedule, which you've seen before. We'll go to the next slide. This summarizes goals. I'm not going to talk to this except to say that this is kind of our annual goals to limit the tax increase, maintain services, maintain funding for capital programs, and then to ask important questions every year. What costs are going up? Are there abnormal decreases in revenues? Are there any outstanding issues? Next slide. These are some of the important points with this particular document. As Councilwoman Ehrlich explained, this is a draft document. The numbers absolutely will change. So please keep that in mind. I'm open and happy to discuss with any of you individually some of the information behind these numbers. As Kyle mentioned, the EMT services are part of this, and what he's done is unbelievable. It is going to be about $419,000, we believe, for this year for funding for the EMT services. We will have revenues to offset that. Municipal revenues, as a general rule, are finally back up to pre-pandemic levels. We'll talk about that in a minute. Fund balance did very well this year, driven partially by increased interest income. And then we're looking to increase funding for general capital, maybe even more than what we have in this document here, because A, we're a little bit behind on some funding, and B, things are more expensive. Everything's more expensive. So the next slide is just a cover slide for revenues, and then we'll go to the next slide. So budgeted municipal revenues. This shows what we actually had in the state budget document from 2020 to 2024. You can see the precipitous drop during the pandemic. This is highlighted in the budget document in line B2. We'll show that in a minute. This includes revenues all over the place, from licenses for the health department, licenses for the clerk, fire prevention, health, police, revenue we get from planning, annual parking fees, daily parking fees, court fees, interest on taxes, interest on investments, tax-exempt sewer fees, construction fees, which are significant. All of those together, that shows the budgeted municipal revenues that have been in the budget document in the past years, and 2024 is what we have in for this year. Next slide. We talked for a couple of years about summarizing some of the items in revenue that have been impacted by the pandemic. Court absolutely was impacted by the pandemic. You can see it went from 173,000 down to less than half. It still hasn't come back. Some of that, honestly, is driven by rules within the court that there's not enough enforcement mechanisms that have been put back into place. So people just aren't responding to the fines and things like that. There's nothing that kind of motivates people to close that loop. So in any event, parking obviously has come back not quite to pre-pandemic levels. That's the daily parking revenue. And then interest income was obviously something that we had anticipated going up, but we weren't sure at the time last year, and it certainly clearly went up this year. We're continuing to earn interest income, but you hear, is the Fed going to start to reduce interest rates? Is our interest rates going to go down? No, they're going to hold things up. So, it's always a challenge to anticipate the interest income and the revenue from that. So if we go to the next slide, this is the municipal fund balance. It's the best picture of the small picture of the municipal's financial strength. And it talks about we have what generates fund balance, which is non-taxable revenues, delinquent tax collections, current year taxes, cancellation of prior year appropriations, miscellaneous revenue. And then we have the use of that fund balance within the budget. And if you go down to the bottom where we have the box, you can see that we had a very alarming, significant drop in fund balance in 2020. We are kind of finally back up to where we were in 2018 and 2019 in terms of the fund balance at year end. So we're generating fund balance. A lot of that was the interest income that would far exceeded what we had budgeted. If we budget $200,000 in the budget for interest income and we get $900,000 or $800,000, that difference is what goes into fund balance. And so $600,000 of the increase in fund balance was strictly from interest income. So in any event, I also want to talk about fund balance and two very significant grants that we received this year. One was for $4 million from the Hartley Dodge trustees to help fund the revenue of this building, and the other was a $1 million grant to purchase the Madison Masonic Lodge. Both of those are grants, as you may recall, that get paid out over multiple years. And so we don't have that money right now, but we're going to be starting construction soon. We have purchased the Masonic Lodge already. So there's a $4 million Hartley Dodge trustee grant, of which $3.2 million is still due. There was a $1 million grant from Martin Heller to purchase the Masonic Lodge, and none of that money has come in yet. We know it will soon. But those two receivables, those two grant items, represent $4.2 million. The fact that we had fund balance allowed us to manage that cash flow and manage the fact that, well, this money's coming, but we're going to go and buy the Masonic Lodge right now. And we're going to go and move forward with the Hartley Dodge renovation now. So if you look at what's called free balance, which is we take what we had in fund balance at year end and we subtract out what we're assuming we're going to use in this year's municipal budget, there's just $4,772,000 left. $4.2 million of that is kind of already spoken for in terms of cash flow. So, but you know, not to be alarmed, but it's a good thing that we had this fund balance to be able to manage what would have been a cash flow crunch if we didn't have it. So next slide, we're going to talk for a few minutes about the rateable base and equalization. We've talked about some of this, but we had an interesting thing that happened. This is the map that shows Giralda Farms. I lived in town my whole life. I've said this multiple times. I didn't know what was what in there. You just never got inside unless you ran the 5K. So that shows the different buildings. The bottom corner is the corner of Woodland Road and Lewanika, that triangular building that is quite visible. And then the far end, I think most people know where Quest Diagnostics is. That's opposite Bailey Ellard. You go to the next slide.
And don't ask about how they came up with the numbering system.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, let's go back to that. Go back. I think 725. I don't understand that, how that happened, Mayor. So anyway, so if we go to the next slide, it's the 7 largest taxpayers in 2023, and we've talked about the concerns, and we still have concerns about appeals, and so we put a little more information in here about the appeals. Giralda 5 is the AbbVie building. It's actually the building at the bottom image there. They paid $1.4 million in property taxes in 2023, but they had a successful reduction in their property taxes and paid $110,000 less than what they had previously. Realogy has 1 year of tax appeals. They're the second largest GVR. Rose Hall and Madison Place, that's the development over by the old Green Village Road School. They cannot appeal their property taxes or their land taxes. That number there does include all of the payments, including land taxes and administration fees, but they continue to be the third largest rateable, if you will. And we talked about that years ago, and it's still holding true. Geralda 7 is that V-shaped triangular building. They have tax appeals going about 1, 2, 3, 4, they have 6 years worth of tax appeals. Merck, the Geralda 2 building, no appeals outstanding. Geralda 1 is a multi-tenant office building that has 1, 2, 3, 4 years worth of tax appeals. And look at the Quest Diagnostics building, currently vacant, has been vacant for a number of years. Because it's vacant and because it gets valued at, look at Bob Landry because he deals with this every day, but because it gets valued at the revenue that's brought in, as opposed to someone's home, they were able to successfully appeal the taxes, and their taxes went down from $349,000 to $164,000. As soon as that gets repurposed in some way or tenants go in, we'll be able to increase the taxes back up. It just shows the exposure that we have with some of these largest. We have about $850,000 in our tax appeal reserve, so we're in okay shape in that regard, but something to keep in mind. Next slide, Michael. In the budget document, you'll see the revenue from new ratables. We have talked in the past about the Conleyville illustration where there's 3 houses and an empty lot, and that empty lot, a house gets built on it, how that impacts taxes. How that has an effect on taxes, property taxes. So we have, the real estate market was soft and the pandemic was impacting us, but this year we had a number of new ratables that were a net positive benefit to us, and as a result, that line in the budget, which you'll see in a minute, has increased by $207,000 with new ratables. We'll go to the next slide. Shifting gears here, but we're still talking about the valuation and property taxes and everything. Equalization is the process where the total assessed value in town gets converted to what might be called a true value. In layman's terms, you may have a house that is worth $800,000, but if you look at your taxes, it will say it's assessed at $600,000 or $550,000. And the assessment of $550,000 is done purely so we can fairly and equitably have everyone pay their appropriate share of taxes. Someone has assessed a house that's assessed at $550,000 will pay half as much as someone that has a house that's assessed at $1.1 million. But the assessed value doesn't equate to the actual value of it. Equalization brings it back into line. And every year the state determines an equalization ratio based on property sales for the last 2 years. The county uses this ratio to more equitably spread county tax. Imagine if you had a house in Madison that was worth $800,000, it was assessed at $550,000. You paid taxes based on $550,000. If your friend had a house in Chatham that was worth $800,000, they recently did an assessment and it's assessed at $750,000, we'd both probably be paying similar in taxes, $800,000 home, $800,000 home, but the equalization would unfairly give Madison a break on the county tax. So they equalize things, get everybody on an equal playing field, and the county uses that to charge county taxes. I hope that's the best I can do for explaining it. It's a lot of
yeah. You've kind of had it backward. The equalization puts everyone on equal ground, and if we were only collecting taxes for Madison, it really, and everyone was at 80%, it doesn't matter. Everyone's on fair ground, but it's when you're doing countywide, and now you have one town that's at 100% where some other is 80. So it's just a way of handicapping in a way.
Good, excellent explanation, Mayor. Thank you. So the ratio, the equalization ratio drops when there's a strong real estate market and homes are being actually bid up. Sale prices, as we said, for the last 2 years are used to determine an equalization ratio, and sale prices for homes in Madison were, significant, and were, it was a very strong housing market in 2022 and 2023. As a result, you see the ratio dropping. The ratio dropped for most towns in the county because the state kind of did a little bit of a different process. However, ours dropped a little more, so we're probably going to pay a little more in county tax this year as a whole as compared to other towns. The most important thing to realize here is that the lower our ratio gets, the more likely the county tax board will start to ask us to do a revaluation, and we're actually already in conversations with them about that. But it was a real kind of surprise, and it has an impact in other ways, which we'll talk about in a minute. Let's go to the next slide, Michael. This is a slide you've seen before in the largest department: appropriations, police, public works, fire, garbage, library, and sewage treatment. And just keep in mind the police and the fire are 24/7, 365 operations. We go to the next slide. I'm not going to talk to it, but it's a good graphic representation of the different departments and the major departments and how they kind of stack up. If we go to the next slide, you've seen this before. It's a slide on pension costs. It explains why police and fire pensions are so much more expensive. We pay more for 37 employees in the police and fire pension system than we do for 90 employees in the regular pension system. I'm not going to go into the explanation. The slide is self-explanatory. If we go to the draft budget, a lot of numbers. Again, I apologize, but when you have a quiet moment, you can look at them. I wanted to show a number of years of the budget and then the change from 2022 to 2023. If we go to the next slide, I kind of took away a few of the columns to make it a little easier to process, and then we can start to highlight some of the items on the slide. In terms of revenue, as we talked about, fund balance did well. That was the previous slide. As a result, we're going to take more in fund balance than we ever have and use that as a revenue in the budget. $6,215,000 is what our draft placeholder number is at the moment. B2 is the municipal revenue sources. We talked about that a minute ago. That is up significantly, and that's helping because we've got other expenses on the other side. And then B4 is the new ratables that we talked about. And that's the third yellow highlighted line. And then if we go to the appropriations or the spending side, there's a couple of items to note. Some are highlighted. I'm going to go over a couple of others. State statute mandates that public libraries receive 1/3 of a mil on each dollar of equalized assessed property. And so our town library receives that. Because of the drop in the equalization ratio, the amount of money that the library is set to get based on this algebra was significantly higher. And in fact, we talked to the folks at the library because we actually gave them additional dollars above and beyond this mill rate for supporting utilities. We did that a number of years ago because we used to not bill them for electric. And then we said, well, we're going to bill you, but we'll give you some money. And we've talked to them, and they've agreed to not take that utility subsidy this year. But even with that, if you look at line B29, the public library alone is going up well over $100,000, 7% increase. If you jump back up to the top, property taxes on existing ratables, it's going from $16,066,000 to $16,387,000. It's about $320,000 for a 2% tax increase. The library represents fully 1/3 of the property tax increase this year because of that mill rate, and that was with them giving us the concession on the utilities. So I just wanted to point that out. B32, that line, is the capital improvement fund, and about 4 or 5 years ago, we were at $3.5 million, and we're trying to get back to that number so we can more fully fund the capital programs that we need to fund. And I think that is a number that may even change or go up depending on future conversations. But all of those together are creating a 2.7% increase in total appropriations. And so with that, I just want to go to the last slide, which kind of talks about what we've seen many times before, which is the average assessed home pays about $3,000 in municipal property taxes, and they get all these tremendous benefits that you don't honestly get at every town, whether it's sewage treatment, you might live in a town in Chatham Township where you're on septic, or garbage pickup. Some towns charge extra per bag, some of our neighboring towns, or some of the other services that we provide that other towns don't provide, or I think that we provide better, if I can be. I just think we do. So paid fire department, EMT services, you've heard all of that. So the 2% property tax increase represents a $5.14 per month increase in property taxes for this average assessed home. So with that, I wanted to take questions. I do want to preface it by reminding everyone that this is draft. There are some numbers. Mike, why don't we go back a couple of slides to the appropriations. I want to point out a couple of others. Oh, sorry, Michael, you went to the budget. I apologize. I want to point out a couple of other lines here that I know stuck out because some of you asked about them. One is Madison Chatham Joint Meeting, which is the appropriation line. That's for our sewage treatment at the plant. Line B28, it's only going up by $10,000. Jim, how is that possible? We know that, you all know that our share is going to go up this year based on the way we allocate between the two based on metering, and you know the budget's going to go up. We always had some extra in that line in case we had to pay a true-up. And we've had to pay a true-up in the past of $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. So we're choosing to not increase that line, which will do two things. It makes it a tighter budget, and therefore will generate less fund balance because we're trying to manage and not over-generate fund balance. And I do want to say that it's a placeholder because we don't have the Madison Chatham Joint Meeting budget. So that's one of those numbers that's a placeholder, or you might look at it and say, that's interesting. Health insurance, which is line B18, only going up by less than 1%. It went up by over 5%. We just had enough appropriation in that line that we were able to make it to increase it a little less. We'll have to look at that because we do have new hires with the 14th firefighter, with other employees, an additional full-time person in the court, but I think we're going to be okay there. So some of these appropriations seem like, geez, Jim, how are you doing that? Well, we're trying to generate less fund balance because I think there needs to be. I think we're at that point where we're operating well, and so that is something that we're looking at. And we're also, quite frankly, pushing up against the appropriations cap because of other things going up. I don't want to get in. It's a very long discussion on that. It's just, I wanted to point that out. So we're looking to be, tighten up and be conservative on the appropriation lines. And with that, I'll stop talking and I will take questions. Start with Eric and then Bob.
Thanks, Jim. Very informative, as always. Just want to make sure that it's reinforced a couple of things. So you just confirm some of my assumptions here. The budget for the last several years, we've had the electric dividend program. So I know we're talking about reducing fund balance. But the $2 million that serves that program and the targeted electric rebates, those programs remain intact with
Correct.
What we're doing here.
Correct, yes. Thank you for bringing that up.
And you mentioned it, and we mentioned it with Kyle's presentation, but I think it's worth reiterating that in this draft budget, we are fully funding the new EMS program, which is an expense we didn't have a year ago, and that is not an inexpensive endeavor. It is certainly one that we should fund and is worth every nickel we give it. But it is, as you said, the 14th full-time firefighter, a dozen or so per diem EMTs, the additional There'll be some minor salary stuff with the additional captain's position, which is not an increase in headcount, but an increase in responsibility for someone. So I think it's really important that we recognize kind of the value that we're getting out of this budget, even if there is a tax increase that comes along with it. And Kyle sort of had it on his presentation around the fire truck and where that lays out in our capital spending plan, which is $300,000 over the course of the next couple of years, but I know there's been some discussions where we might be able to do something with that. So all of that said, I think this is a very judicious budget to start out with, and I know we'll be sharpening our pencils between now and March.
Correct, and that $419,000 that I reported on the EMT services is almost a new department that was created for EMT services. The 14th firefighter is still in the fire department line, and some of the other expenses are still in the fire department line. If you add all that together, that's the property tax increase for the year. So there was a 2% property tax increase for the year, but we have gone from a very good EMT service that we have with the volunteers, but was having problems and unstable and not able to be always there on the call and have some delays, to now having a highly professional guaranteed service EMT. So if we look at it that way, I think that's a really good way of looking at what the property tax increase is going to.
Sure.
And Bob?
Yeah, Jim, I tell you, this is one of the best budgets I've seen. I mean, you did a really nice job at this. And I know we'll probably go over this later on, the whole issue of the fund balance going into funding the budget, so to speak. I remember when I was brandy dandy new on council, that was always a big McGilla. But right now, I'm going to guess that it's probably within the strategic guideline numbers that we came up with a long time ago. I think we're pretty safe with that. So I'm very comfortable with that. And also, as far as the exposures on appeals, without going back through that whole chart of the properties, it looks like your big heavy hitters, you don't have a whole lot of exposure there. You know, you got some back years, but it's not terrible compared, like you settled a bunch of them already. Yeah. So I think the money you have in there just might get us through it.
We're always going to set aside every year in the budget money to put back into the tax appeal reserve. I actually ratcheted that number back into the budget. You don't see it. I think I went from $150,000 to $100,000 of money that goes into that tax appeal reserve because money goes out every year when we have the appeals. I thought those numbers were pretty scary, the number of appeals that we have outstanding. But you deal with it every day, so maybe it's less scary for New York City, but for Madison, it's scary.
No, but I think the key there is, and you kind of touched on this, as those properties get repurposed, that money comes back in. So the trick there is a good strategic plan to repurpose those properties going forward.
That's into the key resolution for that was discussed this evening there about Geraldo.
Tom? Sure. Thanks, Jim. You're a whiz. Got over my head a few times, and I actually read it before today, but until some of it was so technical, which is good. And some of the lingo that you have to use for, like a mill. What's a third of a mill? Should I say that's a third of $1 million?
No. I'll show you the math later.
You don't need to show. We're just saying some of the.
It might be on the final exam, so you might.
I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna cheat. So, but some of the good things that you pointed out, Jim. You have a very resilient, obviously, you know, our tax revenues in general seem to be very resilient, even though you have some of your reassessments in the borough, but it looks like the taxpayers have been very good as far as residential. The commercial, whereas more could be fluctuating. But it's the massive properties that could happen with. And we can project, even though I know you can't, you build your budget around that, like Bob said, some of these commercial properties, hopefully repurposed or reutilized again in the future, and we actually bring some of that back. And that will help the borough dramatically.
I think that'll really change things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it'll really change what's going on in the town in multiple ways, but financially, It'll, you know, it's been weighing on us for a number of years.
Yeah, I see that. But luckily, there's been some development, and those properties are going to come, and there's some more that are going to come online this year. You can estimate a few of the projects.
Yeah.
Madison Mall apartments and the movie theater building and a few more that are going to help us too, right? So you showed that our tax revenue, our interest revenue, is $834,000. But it seems like it should be a lot more because in 2019, we're probably not even earning 1% on whatever cash we have in the bank. So I'm just wondering, is there, I know there was some money that we earned in interest on the electric utility, but maybe it doesn't show up here.
No, it doesn't. No, that's the electric utility. So there's three separate entities, right? So if there's money in the water utility, that interest income stays with the water utility. There's money in the electric utility, that income stays with the electric utility.
Right.
So this is just...
So who presents that budget? Who says, oh, well, the electric utility this year, because they have $10 million in the bank, they earn $500,000 in interest that they're going to, obviously, you're going to appropriate, to oversee all of that.
Yep. So that's part of the revenues and part of the information that was given at the last meeting that had utilities. It's just labeled miscellaneous revenues, and it's and that's
that in here?
Yeah, no, we're just talking municipal budget tonight. So we'll bring back in the utilities back in March, and we'll kind of try to fold it all together. We'll have a good conversation with the department heads at the next meeting. You'll get an understanding of what their capital needs are, and then we'll have a follow-up conversation that kind of pulls it all together. You'll have had a conversation on capital, a conversation with the department heads, a conversation on utilities, a conversation on municipal budget, and then we kind of have all the ingredients to bake a cake.
Right. So, but the 834 is from the cash that you're holding from the community just in your municipal budget. It's hard to understand. Because like you have $2 million that we're holding for uncollected taxes. So at 5%, that's $100,000, which is great that you're earning some money from that. So that's all coming from where? You're collecting our money, and then before you give it to the schools, you're obviously making interest every month or every quarter.
All the accounts that we have that are with the current fund,
right?
Absolutely, that's the interest income that's earned from all of those different accounts.
Right, so you can't count on that because your revenue's bumped up like $500,000 from last year over what you're...
Yeah, and we're going to anticipate more of that revenue this year, which means it will have less of an impact on, less of a positive impact on the fund balance, because if we anticipate more of it, then there'll be less extra. It's the extra that impacts the fund balance. So, but I'm kind of getting off topic here. In terms of the $800,000, just looking at that as the interest income, it's hard to sit here and say, oh, we're going to get $800,000 next year.
Oh, yeah, no.
We just don't know what the interest, what the market's going to be like. So we have to be careful with something like that. Right?
So what I'm leading into a little bit, since this is going to be a big impact year for the community in an increase in property taxes because of the schools. We send the bill out, but the impact is going to be because of the schools referendum, the new capital campaign that they did $79 million. We don't know how they're going to fund it, but it could be a big impact. So maybe you're very good usually at maneuvering. You might be able to lessen the borough's tax increase after some more collaboration and review. It could be minimal, but it could be something that will just...
We certainly have to refine a lot of these numbers and see where it ends up going. And it may be that we could do a little something this year, and then come next year we have a better sense of the interest income of all the other things, and say, oh, you know what, next year we can be even a little tighter on that. But for now, I really also do want to get an understanding of the capital. You know, when Kyle was talking to us, he's like, and I'm like, Kyle, you know, we did pretty well in fund balance. It was a conversation last week. Maybe what we'll do is we'll bump up capital improvement line here, this line right here, and maybe we could pre-fund that fire truck and order it now, because he's saying if I put the order in now, it's going to take 3 years to get it. I'm like, well, okay, then we'll get it in 3 years, and we'll have the price locked in before prices go up. And he comes in, and I fell out of my chair. What's the matter? It's not a workers' comp claim, is it? No. I just fell out of my chair because of the price. It's literally 25, 35% more. It's 1.2 million. So like, oh, okay. So, you know, I was talking to Councilman Range and Councilwoman Ehrlich a little bit about maybe we fund the 900,000 this year, and then next year, like we do with the road program, we say we feel good, the money's there, January, boom, appropriate it to the fire truck and put the order in early January. I want to have some more conversations with you and refine some of these numbers a little more, and really figure out what we're going to do with capital. There's other projects that are floating out there that people have been talking about, and you know, there's only so much money. We need to figure out how best to deal with it.
Can the GVR pilot, does that ever go up, or that just stays?
No, it goes up.
It started out less than that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was much less than that when we first finished it.
Yep, it's 10% of rent. It's 10% of rent. So as their rents go up,
it's
10%.
That's how it works. Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's just part of it. They do pay land taxes. So here's what you owe, but you subtract out your land taxes. So the land taxes are a big portion of it, and land taxes go up because the tax rate is going up. So they do have that. So.
Thanks, Jim. Great job.
Other comments or questions? Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
And just a little over 10 minutes, so you did. A lot of information. I'm always very good job. We can't cut that short.
No.
We now move on to ordinance for hearing. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Ordinance is scheduled for hearing or introduced by title and passed on the first reading at the regular meeting of the council held on January the 22nd, 2024. They were posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call up ordinance for second reading and ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title. We will be doing ordinances 2, 3, and 4, and 6 all together in a single hearing, so I'll ask the clerk to read those three. That's 2, 3, and 4, and 6, which are all related to general capital. So please read those by title.
Ordinance 2, 2024. Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $650,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the 2024 Cook Avenue Parking Lot Reconstruction Project rebid. Ordinance 3, 2024. Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $600,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the 2024 milling and overlay projects. Ordinance 4, 2024 is ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $235,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the 2024 Sanitary Sewer Improvements Program. And ordinance 6, 2024 is the ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $100,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for additional security equipment.
So I now open the hearing for ordinances 2, 3, 4, and 6, all related to general capital. Anyone in the public wishing to comment on these ordinances, please step forward. You may comment on all at once or any particular ordinance. Seeing none, I close the hearing on these ordinances. I'll ask for a motion for ordinance 2-2024, which is the $650,000 for the Cook Avenue parking lot.
Mayor, I move ordinance 2-2024.
Second.
Any council discussion? And these are all part of the capital budget and as presented prior, and this is also additional, as unlike the others, this is additional funding for Cook to cover the increased costs. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich? Yes. Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harold Putis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 2-2024 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now ask for a motion on ordinance 3-2024, which is a $600,000 for the milling and overlay projects.
Mayor, I move ordinance 3-2024.
Second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harold Putis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 3-2024 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. We will now make a motion on ordinance 4-2024, which is appropriating $235,000 for the sanitary sewer improvements program.
Mayor, I move ordinance 4-2024.
Second.
Any council discussion?
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harlan Prudis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 4-2024 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in newspaper filing ordinance in accordance with the law. And now we'll ask for a motion for ordinance 6-2024, appropriating $100,000 from general capital for additional security equipment.
Mayor, I move ordinance 6-2024.
Second.
Any council discussion? Yes, Tom.
Did we already get this money from the federal government for this security thing? Wasn't that part of that grant? And we put it on.
Well, we have a resolution which is noting that some of this be funded through ARP, but this is appropriation from general capital.
Oh, so we did, when they gave us that, our money went into our general fund and we get to use it? Or does it work differently?
This is just what we're using from general capital.
Okay.
So we're pulling from multiple pockets for this one.
Got it.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harlan Prudis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 6-2024 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice there in newspaper filing ordinance in accordance with the law. I now call up ordinance 5-2024 to be read by title.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $390,000 from the Water Capital Improvement Fund for the potable water well improvements projects.
I open the hearing on ordinance 5. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 5-2024.
Second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harold Prudis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 5-2024 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in newspaper filing ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 7-2024.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $250,000 from the Municipal Open Space Recreation and Historic Preservation Trust Fund for the Memorial Park Trail Improvements Phase 3.
I open the hearing for ordinance 7. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 7-2024.
Second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harlan Prudis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Forte?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 7-2024 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice there of newspaper filing ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 8-2024.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 18 of the Code of the Borough of Madison entitled Fire Department, establishing promotional procedures for review of the ranking of candidates for the position of Fire Chief and Captain.
I open hearing on ordinance 8. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 8-2024.
Second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harlan Prudis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 8-2024 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. And now we're on to our second invitation for public comment. This is when you may comment on any topic. As always, we ask you to try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, but give you a 1-minute grace period. Welcome again, Claire.
Hi, Claire Whitcomb, 12 Harewood Road. I know this is why you've all been staying up, just waiting so that you can have the comment period. I'm here on behalf of the Friends of the Drew Forest. I hope you all got Valentine's. Mayor, there's been some problem with yours. Tom Harlan Prudis purloined them.
Oh, somehow they ended up in front of me.
I wrapped them with a ribbon and a fern, and there's a whole pack from all of us at Friends of the Drew Forest, individually signed with a great deal of organization, and there they are.
I'm going to get into that.
No, I don't know what happened, but Tom, thanks for...
Yeah, I pointed it out. I didn't want to keep them not disturbed.
I just want to tell you we had really great Valentines this year. They're designed by Bethania Viana, Drew class of 2017, who's been doing our social media. Valentine, don't leave me lonely. Take a walk with me in the Drew Forest. This is Valentine Let's Grow Old Together. We sent this to the president of Drew. We sent this to Bill Landis and trustees on the theory that Madison and Drew want to grow old together. It's been 150 years already. You know, we're in it for the old growth trees. Valentine Stay Wild, which I think some of you got. Valentine, I'm rooting for our love. Valentine, let's sing a love song in the Drew Forest. And there's one I don't have. It's about it's a treat to know you. Yes, there you go, Eric. So we decided that, you know, we're in our third year of doing this, that we had gotten so much support from Environment New Jersey, Sierra Club of New Jersey, that we decided to send these Valentines out to all the people who are wondering if the forest has been saved, just to say hello, thank you. It takes a long time to do a conservation sale. So Drew students were really enthusiastic about that, and we had a large shipment scheduled to be handed out tomorrow, but Drew is going to be remote, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. But thank you for all your support and consistent forest appreciation. Ray Cody and Jim Burnett and Liz got their Valentines earlier. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire.
Always good to get Valentines, especially for the Drew Forest, so thank you very much. Anyone else wish to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we now move on to introduction ordinances. Will the clerk please read the statement?
The ordinance scheduled for first reading will have a hearing date set for February the 26th, 2024. Will be posted in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, and made available to members of the public requesting copies.
I call up ordinance 9-2024 for first reading. Ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending and supplementing Chapter 195 of the Borough Code entitled Land Development regarding stormwater management.
Mayor, I move ordinance 9-2024.
Second.
Comments? Eric?
Yeah, Rachel.
I was just gonna, I think it would be interesting to know what inspired this update. Is it based on the new New Jersey law requiring us to update our stormwater management? I think sharing a little background next week at the hearing would be helpful to
share some of that.
Oh my gosh, what a setup.
You ask and you shall receive.
So yes, this came before the planning board and first at the land use committee of the planning board and then later to the full board in our last meeting. But yes, much of this work was done in response to the new DEP regulations requiring towns to update their stormwater management ordinances by July. So we are in the pipeline to do that in time. We also took feedback from several organizations, the Environmental Commission, Sustainable Jersey, and many of our other green groups in town, where we're actually, in some cases, exceeding the DEP requirements as well. So this is sort of a comprehensive look at all of this, and Dennis Harrington did yeoman's job in kind of cobbling together all of the state requirements, all of the feedback from other groups to get us in a really good place to make sure that we didn't run afoul of the DEP regulations.
Well, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. And this was approved by the planning board and recommended to be approved tonight. So there you go.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harold Lamputis?
Yes.
Sonahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
We now move on to consent agenda resolutions. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mayor, I move the consent agenda of resolutions 61-2024 through 91-2024.
Second.
Popular demand, I'll read each. Any discussion or any that need to be pulled? Yes.
I would like to give a little background on Resolution 79-2024. This is the Resolution endorsing the adoption of green building practices for civic, commercial, and residential buildings. The idea with this policy, which is based on a model resolution from Sustainable Jersey, is that it states that the borough is adopting a policy that we will consider opportunities to incorporate green building, energy efficiency, electrification, and green infrastructure measures into the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of municipal buildings. So the idea is that we should always consider those when we look at municipal projects. And furthermore, the policy will encourage green design for commercial and residential buildings through the current options that we have, whether they're voluntary or educational outreach, as well as future measures that are outlined in the resolution that may be adopted in years to come. So I am interested to know if anyone has any questions or comments on this, but I think it's a policy that is meant to encourage and guide, and I think we're already well on our way to exploring a lot of these options in our municipal projects.
Any other discussion?
Well, I want to piggyback on that. You did such a great job with your committee, Rachel. Everybody's so thorough in everything they present to us. But we're only focusing now on the municipal side, even though you did mention how we're trying to encourage residentially or private development to do the same. So I asked you a couple of times that if there's a way to maybe consider incentivizing the community so that they do instead of voluntarily, because you might get 2% of the people voluntarily to change from a gas water heater to an electric water heater, or contractors to build out a house in a different manner that will benefit the homeowner in the long run, but they don't think about it like that. So that's just another part of the equation to make the borough very green. We have 16,000 residents, so if we can get them to actually follow what you're proposing, it's going to be fantastic for all of us.
Yeah, and as we know, because Madison doesn't pay into societal benefits charges, we are not currently eligible to receive funding from JCP&L, for instance, to upgrade to high-efficiency heat pump or hot water heaters or building heating. So, yes, I think this is something that we're going to talk about real soon, hopefully, and see how we can compete or be equivalent to the investor-owned utilities and how we can encourage that. But I just want to say this policy, which considers opportunities for municipal projects and encourages opportunities for all others, is about more than just equipment. It's about the whole range of sustainable building practices, some of which are outlined in the resolution. So I think it's a great step that we're taking this, because it kind of codifies that this is the borough's policy. And the next step will be to distribute the resolution to all the department heads and help the whole borough understand that this is the approach we want to take borough-wide.
Chief, getting an EV or a hybrid?
Yeah, well, I don't want to say anything. It's too late to get into EVs right now. But yeah, the idea is when we make it a policy that we always want to consider opportunities whenever we have an opportunity to build or do a maintenance policy or improve an existing building. This should be part of the discussion.
Thank you.
Anything else? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harlan Putis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
All right, there is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers. Will the clerk please read the voucher totals?
From the current fund, $857,187.52. From the general capital fund, $250,775.37. From the electric operating fund, $347,402 even. From the water capital fund, $27,183.93. And from the trust, $237,331.29. The total is $1,719,880.11.
Motion?
Mayor, I move approval of the vouchers.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Range?
Yes.
Mr. Harlan Putis?
Yes.
Ms. Honahan?
Yes.
Mr. Forte?
Yes.
right, new business. I'd like to announce the following appointments that are not subject to council confirmation. This is just cleaning up some of the appointments from our reorganization. Environmental Commission, 3-year term through December 31st, 2024. Marin Bowen, regular member, and for a 2-year term through December 31st, 2025, Stephen Stockard, alternate member 2. And I'd like to make the following appointment requesting council confirmation to Sustainable Madison Advisory Committee, Loretta Davidson, regular member, unexpired, 3-year term through December 31st, 2025.
Mayor, I move approval of the foregoing appointment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, everyone be careful out there tomorrow.